Chapter 401. Han Fei was quite shocked. Why are there so many monsters here? The hexagon starfish said, Human, I think it's terrible to hunt for treasures with you. I'm going back to the seaborne prairie. Shut up. Believe it or not, you'll become someone else's contractual spiritual beast in a few days. Han Fei only stayed here for a few seconds when a crab dozens of meters long swept its pincers at him. More importantly, this crab was different from the ones outside. It was completely black. That crab pincer couldn't even be considered a crab pincer. It was more like a pair of scissors, sharp inside and out. Behind him, the hero souls waved their weapons at him. Han Fei felt that anyone else would have been killed. None of the creatures in front of him were weak, such as this crab. Name Blade Edge Spiritual Crab. Introduction. This is a mutant crab that has absorbed a lot of dead air in the desolate city. Influenced by the hero's souls, it's very strong. Its shell is very suitable for making armor. Level 3 quality mutated spiritual energy greater than 3,421 points. Effect inettable collectible knife armor absorbable. Han Fei chose the direction of the blade edge spiritual crab, and the blood-drinking knife appeared in his hand. With a clatter, the knife flashed. It was not the time to fight. He needed to leave the battlefield as soon as possible, because the people behind him would soon come. If he didn't escape by then, he would be caught in a dilemma. Kacha, as Han Fei's most powerful combat skill. The draw technique pierced through the crab's shell after one slash. It didn't stop until it swept back nearly 30 meters. At this moment, Han Fei had already stepped on the blade edge spiritual crab and rushed into the unknown darkness. Only 3 seconds after Han Fei rushed into the darkness, a large number of peak-level dangling fissures swarmed into the inner gate. The hero souls and the sea creatures who were about to chase after Han Fei were distracted by a large group of intruders. Then, they charged at the peak-level dangling fissures. Damn it, I've been tricked. Let's go. Han Fei killed 5 or 6 sea creatures in a row, including crabs, octopuses, sea snakes. But to his surprise, he encountered a large conch. Han Fei had seen Xiao Zhan's 8-armed conch before, so he knew that some of these creatures were tough. But just now, that big conch had actually been slashed by him 3 times. Han Fei's face was pale, and his arms were trembling. This kind of creature with a hard shell was really difficult to deal with. If he were to encounter a contractual spirit beast like the 8-armed conch one day, his opponent would most likely be quite powerful. Passing these creatures, Han Fei was directly covered by the concealment array. He first threw one at himself, but the effect was too poor. It was as if he hadn't thrown it. As a result, he was immediately discovered by a serpent. Fortunately, the hexagon starfish, the free labor, threw another one to Han Fei. Only then did he manage to hide him. The hexagon starfish said, You have to learn arrays well. Other than the spirit-gathering array, your array formation skills are too poor. Han Fei said gloomily, I don't know. Do I need you to tell me? Look at me. I don't look like a person who has time to stop and study arrays. Han Fei was speechless. I'm a heavenly talent, but I'm despised by a starfish. When this is over, and I leave the level 3 fishery, I must spend some time to learn arrays. During this period of time, since the sea grassland, Han Fei increasingly discovered the importance of arrays. When he was in the level 2 fishery, he didn't feel it. However, here, he felt that if he didn't know a few powerful arrays, it would be difficult to resist the ferocious people in the level 3 fishery who wanted to kill you. The outer city had turned into a purgatory. At the gate of the inner city, there was a fierce battle. Those hero souls were far stronger than the undead souls. These hero souls were holding spears and drawing knife lights in the seawater one after another. The knife lights were so dense that they condensed into a net. For a time, at the gate of the inner city, contractual spiritual beasts were everywhere. Human beings were fighting crazily. Swords and knives were flying everywhere. One hero soul after another was shattered by many peak-level dangling fissures. An undersea creature like the blade edge spiritual crab could be killed by Han Fei alone, not to mention hundreds of peak-level dangling fissures. One after another, hundreds of advanced, dangling fissures broke through the barriers and joined the battlefield. Han Fei frowned. How many people had Yang Huan intercepted and killed outside? At this moment, the gate of the inner city was almost cleared by those people. The number of peak-level dangling fissures was less than 5, and only 50 advanced dangling fissures were killed before the situation was stabilized. All of a sudden, the 3-turn dragon drool grass at the gate of the inner city instantly exploded. At this moment, Han Fei finally knew how dreadful poisons were. After the countless poisonous creatures surrounding the 3-turn dragon drool grass exploded, they were like strange fireworks in the night sky. Countless colors exploded at the entrance. Han Fei was quite shocked. Yang Huan didn't hesitate to blow up such a rare spiritual herb at all. For that alone, Yang Huan was worthy of his admiration. Not everybody was as bold as him. After all, the 3-turn dragon drool grass might be able to significantly improve the strength of those who ate it. Its hidden value was even higher than that of the venomous tulip. The moment the 3-turn dragon drool grass exploded, the ground below Han Fei's feet trembled. He sensed that something was about to break out of the soil. After a while, he saw hermit crabs appear under his feet. They were so densely packed that he couldn't even count them. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked after reading the information of the hermit crabs. They were rather horrifying. Name: Soul-Eating Crab. Introduction. This is a mutant hermit crab. Nourished by the hero soul, it has the power to eat human souls. Level 13. Quality: mutated spiritual energy greater than 111 points. Effect: inedible, absorbable. Han Fei immediately ejected and swam upward. The creatures were popping up in large numbers. Even though he believed that his spiritual power was strong and his soul was steady, he didn't dare to try it recklessly. The moment Han Fei moved, he received Yang Huan's telepathic message. Han Fei, you need to show your sincerity in our cooperation. I've given enough. I said 30% of them would be poisoned, and I meant it. I've detonated the 1,000-mile red too, and all the creatures within 100 kilometers and even further will go crazy. It won't help even if I continue to attack. It's all up to you now. Han Fei frowned. How did you find me? Yang Huan said, hey, you still have my poison on you. I can find you as long as the poison is still on you. Han Fei knew that Yang Huan was negotiating with him. So far, he had done nothing except attract the monsters and act as bait, which obviously raised Yang Huan's dissatisfaction. But Han Fei wouldn't charge forward and fight them like an idiot. He wouldn't charge into a crowd of people like an idiot unless there was something wrong with his head. Han Fei said, let them fight for a while longer. Yang Huan said, someone will run in half an hour at most. I can't seal the outer city on my own. As long as they can run away in the inner city, neither you nor I can catch them. When can we do it if not now? Han Fei was lost for words. Do you think I'm a god? Do I have to fight 1,000 people on my own? Not only do I have to fight them, but I also have to be wary of those creatures. Yang Huan asked, don't you know how to use the power of lightning? Han Fei said gloomily, you're the one who knows how to use the power of lightning. Do you think I'm a thunder god? Who's the thunder god? Han Fei said impatiently, it doesn't matter who he is. Just collect your swallowing seashells. I know when I'm going to take action. Then, Han Fei searched in the direction where the soul-eating crabs came from. Han Fei was not worried that Yang Huan would run away. There were so many people and swallowing seashells at the gate of the inner city. Unless Yang Huan gave up, their cooperation would have to continue. Soul-eating crabs. The black mass of soul-eating crabs pressed forward. Although tens of thousands of them were crushed in an instant, there were still many more soul-eating crabs that managed to devour the divine souls. Many advanced, dangling fissures fell while they were fighting. There was nothing they could do even if their souls were eaten. Someone panicked. Stop hunting. Stop hunting. Let's run. Han Fei saw that a lot of people crushed their flash stones, and the number of people was decreasing with swishing sounds. After only half an hour, a third of the people had crushed their flash stones and escaped. Apart from those who escaped with their flash stones, hundreds of people simply crawled back to the outer city. Their idea was simple. This was only the gate. What was in the inner city of the undersea city? They didn't know yet, but too many people had died, and they were scared. After realizing that it was hopeless to hunt demons, many people thought that going out was the best choice. Just when these advanced, dangling fishers were about to escape, Han Fei had already wandered into the depths. At this moment, Han Fei was standing outside of an underground cave. Just now, he saw a swarm of soul-eating crabs running out of this place. Also, he sensed more danger down below. Therefore, Han Fei accidentally dropped a spiritual fruit, and it was smashed. Chapter 4:02. By the time Han Fei returned, he found that half of the chaotic crowd had been reduced, and a lot of people had run away. The rest of them managed to resist the current situation. Yang Huan was still in the crowd. Sensing that Han Fei was approaching, he glanced at Han Fei. Yang Huan's face changed greatly. Not bothering to reveal his identity, he simply cursed. "Are you out of your mind?" Han Fei grinned. "Your grandpa Han Fei is here. Who dares to fight me?" Yang Huan had been paying attention to Han Fei's movements. He didn't believe that Han Fei would leave these people here. So, even though Han Fei had gone far away, he didn't care. But at this moment, Yang Huan's face turned green. He could sense a surging tide coming at him from Han Fei's back. How could there be a tide in a place like the undersea city? If there was, it must be some kind of powerful creature. Hearing Han Fei's voice transmission, many people cast their eyes over. Han Fei didn't hide himself, but simply revealed his true face. Damn it! Kill him! What the hell? There's something behind him. Someone had just realized what was going on, but Han Fei had already dashed close. At the same time, hundreds of spiritual fruits fell into the crowd. Many people mistook them for hidden weapons at first. In the end, they turned out to be spirit fruits filled with spiritual energy. Han Fei threw out hundreds of spiritual fruits in one attack. Who had ever seen such a thing in a fight? Bam! 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 The spiritual fruits exploded one after another. For a moment, overwhelming spiritual energy and the most intense fragrance of fruits spread out from the bottom of the sea. Not daring to waste any time, Han Fei suddenly turned around and charged in another direction. Not good. It's the soul-eating crabs. Run. It's not just the soul-eating crabs. What's that? Scavenger? Hum. 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 Flash stones were crushed one after another, and people disappeared one after another. In the place where they were fighting, the soul-eating crabs that looked like swarming locusts all charged at them. Those who didn't have time to escape were devoured alive. Those who didn't have flash stones burst out with all their might, and threw out their spiritual energy like it was free. Han Fei saw someone slash dozens of meters away, killing everything within a range of dozens of meters. Some peak-level dangling fishers were still unwilling to run, because if the team that they had finally gathered was dispersed, nobody was confident that they could survive if they ran into Han Fei, Yang Huan, and Xia Xiaochan alone. Someone shouted angrily, "All of you quiet down. Calm down. Gather up. Gather up." Han Fei grinned and wandered on the edge of the battlefield. Every now and then, he would throw a spiritual fruit or a mass of spiritual energy to a place where there were many people. Gather? You still want to gather? Someone punched through the dense soul-eating crabs and said telepathically, "Peak-level dangling fishers, follow me to kill Han Fei." Han Fei didn't panic. Standing at the broken hole, he slashed with all his strength with the draw technique. Before a peak-level dangling fisher rushed out, he was slashed back, covered in blood. Han Fei shook his head slightly, not very satisfied. When the peak-level dangling fisher was fully prepared, the draw technique failed to kill the opponent. At the next moment, when dozens of peak-level dangling fishers broke out of the battlefield and besieged Han Fei chuckled. Suddenly, a large purple array appeared, followed by a spirit forbidden net falling from the sky. Damn it, it's the spirit forbidden rope. Smash this array. However, Master Hexagon Starfish was now a level 43 mysterious creature. Although it was usually timid, the six-gate formation was not something that could be easily smashed by others. And Han Fei only needed a little bit of time. When the spirit forbidden net covered them, more than 30 blue sea wandering dragon daggers were strangled in it. Dozens of peak-level dangling fishers were strangled by Han Fei in the blink of an eye. Seeing this scene, some people couldn't help but feel bitterly disappointed. These were not junior dangling fishers, but peak-level dangling fishers. They were the top group of people in the level 3 fishery. How could they be killed so inexplicably? After withdrawing the six-gate formation, Han Fei picked up dozens of swallowing seashells and continued to shout, "Grandpa Han is here. Come and kill me if you can." Some peak-level dangling fishers began to evacuate. Too many people had died along the way. They had never thought that half of the team of thousands of people would be killed before they even broke through the inner city gate of the undersea city. Some advanced dangling fishers were fighting fiercely, but they couldn't defeat 10,000 crabs with 2 fists. As long as the soul-eating crabs got close to them, almost no one could survive. Dozens of soul-eating crabs fell on Han Fei from time to time. However, Han Fei didn't give them a chance to eat their souls at all and shattered them with the rolling spiritual energy on the surface of his body. Seeing that no one was rushing out and most of them were fleeing, Han Fei ignored them and looked at this scene with a sneer. Fuse. This was the first time that Little Black and Little White fused after breaking through level 30. At the moment of fusion, Han Fei's demonic eyes shocked many people. His face was slightly distorted, and his body was suffused with a layer of grayish dark light, which directly covered Little Gold's layer of gold. Chilla, Yang Huan rushed out of the crowd and covered himself with a layer of poison, avoiding the attacks of the soul-eating crabs and the scavengers that were full of thorns. At this moment, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he looked at Han Fei. He was so strong. Just now, he felt that Han Fei was a peak-level dangling fisher. However, different from ordinary peak-level dangling fishers, Han Fei was so fast that he tore apart the chaotic soul-eating crabs with one slash. Then, more than 30 blue sea wandering dragon daggers flashed in the seawater like demonic knives. On every knife, black and white knife light was spreading. Puff, puff, puff. At that moment, he really killed one person with one slash. None of the advanced dangling fishers could resist him. As long as they were touched by Han Fei, they would be killed together with their spiritual beasts or contractual spiritual beasts. Of course, Han Fei couldn't avoid being attacked. However, under the horrified gaze of countless people, Han Fei's powerful physique didn't block at all. He let the countless spiritual weapons hit his body, but they could only make clanking sounds. Demon Han is going crazy. Run. Including the peak-level dangling fishers, they had long lost the interest to hunt demons. He was too strong. With such a sturdy body, even if he looked covered in blood, so what? No one's attack could hurt his foundation. Maybe if the remaining peak-level dangling fishers attacked together, they could really kill Han Fei. However, they didn't have this opportunity. There were too many creatures attracted here. Besides, Yang Huan was hiding in the dark, so they didn't dare to act rashly. Let's go. One peak-level dangling fisher after another crushed their flash stones. As for the advanced dangling fishers, the moment Han Fei charged into the crowd, they had already started to run. If they didn't run, would they be slashed by Han Fei one by one? There was no telling how long it had been. At the gate of the inner city of the undersea city, there was no one. Kill Han Fei. Han Fei was strangling the soul-eating crabs by himself and didn't intend to stop at all. Hey, okay, stop killing. There's no one left. Yang Huan secretly spoke to Han Fei via voice transmission. He felt that there was something wrong with Han Fei at this moment. He was very weird and powerful. What shocked Yang Huan the most was that the spiritual energy from all directions was pouring into Han Fei's body like a swarm. Too many living beings had died in this battle, resulting in too much ownerless spiritual qi in this place. It was not Han Fei who was absorbing it, but the demon purification pot. At this moment, Han Fei was actually standing still, and only the blue sea wandering dragon daggers were strangling the crabs. Han Fei closed his eyes. He seemed to feel that something very mysterious was trying to appear in his head. However, he did not succeed again and again. He didn't know what it was, but he craved it. There was no telling how long it had been, but Han Fei's body suddenly went limp, and he almost fell to the ground. And Little Black and Little White automatically canceled their state of attachment. Han Fei quickly opened his eyes, looked at the black bodies in front of him, and asked helplessly, "Master Hexagon Starfish, what just happened?" When Han Fei looked at his shoulder, the Hexagon Starfish was nowhere to be seen. This guy was gone? Master Hexagon Starfish? 1,000 meters away, the Hexagon Starfish crawled out of a lobster shell. 6 big eyes stared at Han Fei. "You're awake?" Han Fei was puzzled. "What just happened?" The Hexagon Starfish shivered. "Just now, there was such a powerful force in you that seemed to be about to burst out of your body. I had to run away." Han Fei frowned. "My body? A very powerful force?" The Hexagon Starfish was silent for a while. "It may not be yours, but your spiritual beasts, Little Black and Little White." Suddenly, Han Fei threw out a blue sea wandering dragon dagger and shot it straight to the void on his left. Immediately afterward, a figure flashed and appeared from stealth. Yang Huan was stunned. "Are you crazy?" Chapter 403. Han Fei's purpose was actually very simple. He wanted to establish his dominance again through this battle. However, after he fused Little Black and Little White, he felt that something was wrong. At first, his strength in all aspects was greatly improved. But later, the more he fought, the more he felt that something was growing in his head. Then, he came back to himself. Han Fei looked at Yang Huan. "What did you see?" Yang Huan waved his hand. "I didn't see anything." Han Fei's face turned cold. "What did I just do?" "What did you do? You don't even know yourself?" Han Fei. Yang Huan looked at Han Fei with a complicated expression. "Just now, the spiritual weapons around you all turned into black and white wheels. Those who didn't have time to run were all killed by you. And these," Yang Huan pointed at the bodies of the sea creatures on the ground. "Many of them had been crushed violently and died a miserable death." Yang Huan was very certain that he would never be an enemy of a monster like Han Fei. He was confident that he was the best in the level 3 fishery in terms of poison. However, in terms of combatability, it wouldn't be a problem for Han Fei to kill dozens of him. Han Fei was confused. "Was I so awesome just now?" Yang Huan raised his hand and threw hundreds of sea-swallowing seashells at Han Fei. Yang Huan looked at Han Fei thoughtfully and said, "A lot of people ran away. I'm afraid that the 4 entrances to the undersea city will be blocked in 10 days. I'm not going into this place. Goodbye." Han Fei caught 208 sea-swallowing seashells in a row. Plus the dozens earlier, he had 260 sea-swallowing seashells in total. Yang Huan smiled casually. "This time, we cooperated well and killed more than 500 enemies. Haha, I can finally rank in the top 5 on the wanted list." Han Fei's lips twitched. "Then I'm first?" Yang Huan shook his head. "It's hard. You only killed more than 10 peak-level dangling fishers with the help of the Spirit Forbidden Net. Mo Qinshang, who ranks first, killed more than 60 on his own. Hey, when you can kill so many peak-level dangling fishers, maybe you can fight for first place." Han Fei. Yang Huan left. He was a smart man. Han Fei was not afraid of poison, not because Yang Huan's poison was not strong, but because Han Fei was lucky. Yang Huan was quite ambitious. Since he couldn't defeat Han Fei, and he didn't want to be besieged in the future, he might as well escape as soon as possible. As for what was in the undersea city, Yang Huan did not care. In any case, since ancient times, not many people had obtained any unparalleled opportunities from there. Han Fei didn't stop him, nor did he ask if the number of sea-swallowing seashells was correct. He had gained a lot from the battle so far. Not only the sea-swallowing seashells, but also many people who wanted to hunt him and Xia Xiaochan were eliminated. After Yang Huan left, Little Black and Little White appeared again. Han Fei looked at the 2 little guys weirdly, feeling that there seemed to be a big secret about them. If Yang Huan's description was correct, his blue sea wandering dragon daggers seemed to have turned into a small supreme yin-yang wheel. Of course, Han Fei knew the power of the supreme yin-yang wheel, but wasn't it a killer move that could only appear when Little Black and Little White combined? Why could they turn their weapons into the supreme yin-yang wheel. After sitting for a while, Han Fei touched Little White's head and said, "Look around. Xia Xiaochan should be here." Little White raised his little head, swam around, and then jumped straight out. Han Fei picked up the hexagon starfish and threw it on his shoulder. "Master Hexagon Starfish, why are you so timid?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. "You were so fierce. If I didn't run away, I might have been killed by you." Han Fei sneered and said, "Master Hexagon Starfish, aren't you known as a treasure hunter in the starfish world? Now that the undersea city has been ruined, where do you think the treasures are hidden?" Freezing currents flashed by occasionally, and Han Fei changed his swimming posture from time to time. The elegant posture of the shadow swimming art made him wander in this dark place as if he were taking a stroll. Because he wanted to see the appearance of this place clearly, Han Fei also took out the flashing lights of the lantern fish that he collected before and strung them together. So, in the dark undersea city, a white fish swam in front, and a young man held a dazzling string of lights and followed it, with bubbles coming out of his mouth from time to time. Those who were familiar with Han Fei would find that every time this guy spat out bubbles, he said, F***CK. Han Fei was shocked to find that there were many big caves like the soul-eating crabs that he found before. In addition, there were also scavengers, which he had seen in the seaborne prairie. But at that time, when the scavengers saw Han Fei, they propped up the bone spurs all over their body and lay motionless on the bottom of the sea. Han Fei even slashed them, but they didn't die. But the scavengers here were obviously different. Although they didn't attack people, they were much bolder. At this moment, Han Fei saw a large group of scavengers lying on the ground and eating soul-eating crabs like jelly beans. Not only that, Han Fei also saw a large conch that had been gnawed hundreds of holes by the scavengers. That thing couldn't be cut open by normal spiritual weapons. Under the illumination of the lights, Han Fei finally saw part of the city along the way. The buildings here were very similar to those on the floating island, and some places were even built with bones. However, the buildings on the floating island couldn't have been so strong for so long, which meant that the materials of these buildings were definitely not low. If the quality of the buildings in this city was so good, how powerful must it have been when it was prosperous? Such a city must have been even more prosperous than the Blue Sea Town. What kind of power caused it to become what it was today? More importantly, why was this city built on the bottom of the sea? This question troubled Han Fei for a long time. Could it be that this city used to be a floating island too? Later, when the floating island fell, it appeared here. The deeper he swam, the more glorious Han Fei felt that this city used to be. Little White would change directions every once in a while. It must have sensed some dangerous creatures, so it chose to avoid them. Therefore, Han Fei didn't encounter any tough creatures along the way. 3 hours later, Han Fei suddenly paused and stopped Little White. He discovered a mystic realm that was surrounded by 7 pillars. This secret realm was covered by an array. "Master Hexagon, do you think there are treasures here?" The hexagon starfish said excitedly, "There should be. How can there be no treasures in the secret realm?" "Then why don't you go in first?" The hexagon starfish. Han Fei smiled. "Forget it. I know you are timid. Let's go in together, but this array seems to have been broken. What do you think?" The hexagon starfish nodded. "It has been broken. Otherwise, we would have been fooled just now. Let's go in." Han Fei took back Little Black and Little White, held the blood-drinking knife, and drilled into the array. After a while, at the corner of a pillar, he found a hole leading to the underground. Han Fei secretly cursed. What he hated the most was that everything was underground. Only God knew what was underground. Of course, although he cursed, Han Fei still jumped down. Creak! To Han Fei's surprise, he entered the treasure trove too easily. Under his feet, he seemed to have trampled rotten wood. When Han Fei shone the light, he found that there was a door under his feet. It was not the normal kind of door, but a prison door made of black iron and some kind of iron tree. Han Fei was surprised. Did I come to the prison of this city? Immediately, Han Fei became curious. In this kind of place, there might not be any opportunities. However, maybe he could learn about the history of this undersea city through it. Han Fei held the light and walked out of the dark passage. However, as soon as he walked dozens of meters, he saw 3 skeletons on the ground. Looking at the state of decay, they seemed to have been dead for nearly 10 years. Judging from the posture of these 3 people's death, they should want to run out of the secret realm. However, for some reason, as soon as they ran here, they died. Attach. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp attached to him, and the 9-star chain was erected. If there was an accident, Han Fei could immediately block it. Han Fei crossed several caves in the rock walls. There are also some rotten tables and chairs scattered around the corners. In some places, there are also some rotten weapons casually thrown on the ground. Han Fei stepped on them and poked them with his knife, only to poke a hole in those weapons. After turning 3 or 5 alleys in a row, Han Fei finally came to the inside of this prison. It was a little more dilapidated than Han Fei imagined. There were almost no doors inside, and most of the walls had collapsed. Han Fei walked to a random prison and saw that there were still bones left in it. There are still bones. Chapter 404. Under certain conditions, bones could exist for millions of years and become fossils. However, those conditions were extremely harsh. However, the abandoned prison of the undersea city obviously didn't meet such extreme conditions. The marine creatures here were different from ordinary marine creatures. Ordinary bones couldn't withstand the gnawing of these marine creatures at all. Maybe in just a few years, the bones would be incomplete. But the bones that were left behind were actually so well preserved. Han Fei was shocked. Crossing the decayed threshold, Han Fei ran over and pinched it a few times, only to find that the bones were quite hard. He didn't know whether it was because he had been cultivating for a long time or something else with doubts. Han Fei continued to walk to the cell behind. On the walls along the way, because they were too old, they seemed to be moldy and covered with all kinds of strange mosses. Some mosses were directly attached to the bones. After passing hundreds of cells, Han Fei found that not every cell had remains. Perhaps this was also related to the strength of these prisoners. When this city suffered a disaster, no one should have let them out. So many people were trapped in the cells and died. After turning several corners in a row, Han Fei didn't find anything special, not even a marine animal. Master Hexagon, do you think there's a place on the bottom of the sea where there are no marine animals? Han Fei was very puzzled. It shouldn't be. No matter how safe this place was, he was at the bottom of the sea. Even if he didn't have any small fish or shrimp, he should have some hermit crabs or small crabs, right? The hexagon starfish rolled his eyes. I feel a bit dangerous here. Dangerous? Han Fei frowned, not knowing what danger this place had. So far, he hadn't seen a living creature that could move. What danger could there be? Suddenly, at a corner, Han Fei stopped. There was no way out. But after the corner, there was a passage that continued downward. Han Fei raised the flashlight, illuminated it, and then walked down the steps. Hula! Just when Han Fei was about to go down to the next floor of the prison, he suddenly saw a pair of eyes flash. Then a figure suddenly flashed by. Who is it? Because it was too fast, Han Fei only caught a glimpse of it. That person seemed to be much shorter than him. Then, the man ran out in a strange posture, as if he was half running and half swimming. Han Fei summoned his fishing rod and swung it. But after 2 turns, the thing disappeared. Is there someone else? The hexagon starfish said via voice transmission, I feel a little familiar. Are you familiar with it? Han Fei was lost for words. Do you really know them? You've been in ordinary fishery for 300 years. Even if you came here when you were young, who could stay in this damn place for 300 years? The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. I don't know. I just feel a familiar aura. Han Fei retracted the fishing rod, and dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers appeared beside him. Since there were living beings here, were there still some secrets hidden here? Han Fei did not impulsively chase that thing. Now this level of the prison was much better preserved than the one above it. Han Fei walked along the road and came to a cell. The door had long since been destroyed, and there was a skull inside. Han Fei felt goosebumps all over his body. If you want to keep your body intact, that's fine. But you only left the skull. What do you mean by that? Where's your body? Han Fei felt a little uneasy. From the moment he came in, he felt that something was wrong. Han Fei turned his head sharply, but didn't see anything. Within the range of his spiritual perception, there was nothing. Walking along the cell, Han Fei found that many cells were empty. If there was a place that was not empty, then there was a skull in this cell. Anyway, there was no other part of the body. Han Fei's lips twitched. Is there a monster with a hobby of collecting here? Or does this city have the custom of throwing the head of a prisoner into the cell after killing him? Moving forward, Han Fei still didn't find anything. Instead, he found another staircase leading down. Damn, how many floors are there in this prison? Han Fei suddenly shivered. Don't tell me there are 18 floors here. If I go down, I can see a pot of oil or something. I'm going back now. This time, Han Fei saw a pair of eyes staring at him in a dark corner. Han Fei was creeped out, but the eyes just glanced at him and ran away again. This time, Han Fei took a step out and quickly appeared in the third floor of the prison. However, as soon as he entered the lower prison, a bloody wind came at him. In a flash, dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers slashed out at the same time. Han Fei controlled the blue sea wandering dragon daggers to almost form a line and slashed at the darkness. However, he only heard clanking sounds. On the ground, a weird figure was waving its tail, and the blue sea wandering dragon daggers were all thrown out. Lizard? Salamander? Serpent? Han Fei didn't need a guess. He saw a head appear on the ground. Then, Han Fei really wanted to run away. That thing was too ugly. To describe it carefully, it was a human-shaped head with only 2 holes for the nose and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It even had 2 skinny hands. The movement of this thing was carried out by these 2 hands. Apart from the webbing, this thing's hands were almost the same as the hands of a skinny adult. What shocked Han Fei the most was what he saw, because the body of that thing was like a fish and it had a long tail. At this moment, that thing's tail was arched, revealing the bone spurs on its tail. A string of data appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name Undead Mermaid, Introduction, the lowest level of marine primates. It evolved from ordinary fish in a special environment and has extraordinary vision. Their teeth were extremely sharp and could even bite through mid-grade spiritual weapons. Level 37 quality. Mutated contains spiritual energy greater than 3,358 points. Effect, inedible, collectible, none, unabsorbable. Han Fei was stunned. Why the hell do you call this thing a mermaid? And it evolved from those ordinary fish? After evolving for so long, this was the result. How ugly would it have been before it evolved? All of a sudden, the undead merman jumped up and bared its sharp claws. At the same time, it opened its mouth wide and bared its sharp teeth, as if it were going to bite Han Fei alive. Bam! Han Fei slapped it with a seal with 80% of his strength. For no other reason than that it was just too ugly. If this thing pounced on him, it would be too disgusting. So, Han Fei simply slapped it with a water-dividing seal, without using the blood-drinking knife. The undead merman rolled on the ground and eventually crashed into a cell. Han Fei immediately rushed over and was about to slap it again with a water-dividing seal. However, in the next moment, the thing threw a human-shaped skeleton at him. Han Fei subconsciously slapped it with the seal and smashed the skeleton into pieces. But what caught Han Fei's attention most was that the skeleton had a tail too. However, this body was relatively complete. It was everywhere from the head to the pelvic cavity. At the bottom of the pelvic cavity, there were actually segments of bones. Oh my God, this is a real mermaid, isn't it? Han Fei swallowed. In the past, it was just a rumor that there were mermaids in the sea. Han Fei had never seen mermaids in all his years of wandering in the sea. Otherwise, he would have taken them home as his concubine. But at this moment, he felt that he had to change his mind. Maybe mermaids did exist, but they weren't as beautiful as he imagined. At this moment, the undead mermaid looked at Han Fei in fear in a corner. Now and then, it roared at Han Fei. Han Fei almost vomited his stomach acid when he saw its buck teeth. The undead mermaid had been paralyzed by Han Fei and couldn't move its lower body anymore. At this moment, It could only scratch with its hands and roar at Han Fei. Han Fei glanced at it in disgust, and then slapped it dozens of times with the water-dividing seal, killing it. I'll let you live. What a cool name. Are you really not going to die? Damn it. What the hell is this place? Why are there mermaids here? Hiss. The hexagon starfish said, watch out. Han Fei waved the blood-drinking knife and cut another undead mermaid into halves. Han Fei's face was awful. Is this place full of such things? Han Fei didn't think that there would be any treasures here. It was true that not all treasure realms had treasures. When Han Fei walked out of the cell, he found that a few gloomy eyes were staring at him at the end of the passage. However, these things didn't charge at him this time. Instead, they gradually retreated. Han Fei hesitated for a moment and looked back. Eventually, he chose to move forward. He was too curious. Mermaids were not like Yang Ruyun, who had completely turned into a fish. They were real mermaids. What would appear at the end of the prison? The hexagon starfish scratched Han Fei's shoulder. Are you still going? Han Fei said, I'm just going to take a look. I'll go out after that. Chapter 405. This time, Han Fei summoned all the blue sea wandering dragon daggers and replaced the water-dividing seal with the embroidery needle. Glue. Han Fei paused and dragged the rod on the ground. Dragging it, he walked forward step by step. The sound of the embroidery needle rubbing the ground was particularly ear-piercing in the quiet prison. Han Fei clearly heard the noises in the darkness. However, it didn't matter to him. Those undead mermaids weren't strong. He wouldn't have come if he had just entered the level 3 fishery. But now that he had made a breakthrough in the indestructible body art, Han Fei wasn't scared of peak-level dangling fishers at all. Therefore, those undead mermaids couldn't possibly survive one attack from him. As Han Fei approached, the undead mermaids finally charged out. When dozens of undead mermaids charged at him, Han Fei tilted his head and waved his fingers, and the blue sea wandering dragon daggers darted out. Streaks of saber shadows cut through the seawater, faintly displaying the power of saber radiance. Clank, clank, clank. Those undead mermaids weren't weak at all. None of them was slow. Some crawled on the ground, some on the wall, and their sharp claws were able to resist the blue sea wandering dragon daggers. Some of the undead mermaids waved their tails, and the bone spurs on them were even more powerful than the blue sea wandering dragon daggers. However, Han Fei simply held the embroidery needle and stabbed it. The moment the blue sea wandering dragon daggers were slapped away, he moved his fingers and darted them out again. After only a minute, 3 undead mermaids had been slashed to death by Han Fei. Hiss! Some undead mermaids jumped to Han Fei. Han Fei's lips curled, and the 9-star chain behind him surrounded the undead mermaid in the blink of an eye. As the 9-star chains tightened and spiritual energy surged, the undead mermaid was strangled to death, and all its bones were broken. Han Fei slightly shook his head. They're not weak, but they're not good at fighting. If the so-called undead mermaids were all so weak, their comprehensive combat ability was equal to that of an intermediate dangling fisher at best. It wouldn't be a problem for Han Fei at all. Hey, I'm done playing with you. Han Fei suddenly waved the embroidery needle. At that moment, the embroidery needle directly became dozens of times thicker, almost filling the entire aisle. Boom! As Han Fei threw it out, a strong fishy smell spread in the seawater with a few howls. After he put away the embroidery needle, the 3 undead mermaids were hammered to death on the opposite wall. In addition to the 4 that he had killed earlier, it seemed that 3 had escaped. However, it didn't matter. He wanted to see what was in the depths of this prison. If it was just this kind of undead fish, it wouldn't be a problem even if there were 100 more. Han Fei sped up and walked forward quickly. After going through many winding passages, Han Fei finally came to a huge prison cell. To Han Fei's surprise, although the cell was broken, there were chains swinging around. There were as many as 6 of these chains, and they seemed to be holding on to something. Han Fei lowered his head and frowned at the bones under his feet. There were many human skeletons here, even those of undead mermaids. Apart from the skeletons, there was also a mess of shells and furs. All in all, there were a lot of bones and shells, which seemed to have been eaten alive. In his perception, Han Fei was quite shocked. Was it a mermaid or a manfish? He saw a freak with legs and a tail, standing in the middle of the cell. However, unlike human beings, he had a fish face. His eyes were so big that they almost popped out. His feet were covered in puff, especially his feet, which only had 3 toes. The hexagon starfish shouted, "Demon, the aura of a sea demon. I remember it. The woman who was with you had such an aura after she turned into a fish." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. A sea demon? Did he run into a sea demon here? Han Fei took a few steps forward, raised the flashlight, and illuminated the figure inside. When he saw this guy's face with his own eyes, Han Fei subconsciously snorted. It was so King ugly. Was there such an ugly demon? How beautiful was Yang Royan? She was also beautiful when she turned into a fish or a human. The thing in front of him had a fish head, but it had a nose, eyes, and ears. Among them, the ears and nose were particularly small, and the mouth was so big that it almost reached the earlobes. It wouldn't be a big deal if that was all. After all, he had seen the ugly undead mermaids just now. The guy in front of him, on the other hand, was green all over, but because it was too thin, the scales in some places had fallen off. It looked like a big dried fish. In Han Fei's eyes, data appeared. Name: inferior manfish, low-level sea demon. Introduction: a sea demon whose intelligence is not fully mature, cruel, and bloodthirsty. Due to the poor species, it is impossible to tell what kind of creature it evolved from. After being trapped for a long time, its comprehensive physique has been greatly reduced and regressed. Level greater than 40, regressed, spiritual energy 1, 221/4, 611, demon heritage, level 3, low quality, realm, awakened, companion spirit, unknown, note, suspected to be possessed, unabsorbable. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. Mr. Hexagon Starfish, do you call this a demon? The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. Huh. It doesn't seem very powerful, but I clearly sensed danger just now. Han Fei's expression slightly changed. Is there a more powerful sea demon here? If it's all at this level, I can kill it with 1 slash. Han Fei shook his head. With its level, its demon heritage, and its storage of spiritual energy, it was just a weakling. However, Han Fei didn't let go of the word suspected to be possessed pass. Possessed? Did something crawl into the inferior manfish's body? Han Fei bypassed the sea demon and looked back. In a corner, the few undead mermaids that escaped were curled up, as if they were very scared of Han Fei. Han Fei didn't care. The 3 escaped fish didn't have any combat ability. The sea demon before him, on the other hand, had been tied up, and its big eyes were still closed. The danger that the hexagon starfish mentioned shouldn't be it, but the thing that possessed it. Suddenly, a vague voice came to Han Fei's ears. Let it go, and I'll give you an opportunity. Han Fei looked around, but saw nothing. In the end, he focused his eyes on the low-level sea demon again. Are you talking? The voice didn't reply. However, Han Fei suddenly smiled and said, Then it's you. Although I'm new here, I know that this thing is still alive. However, even if it's alive, it's about to die. Did you possess it? Are you a human being or a demon? After a long time, the voice finally said, I am a human being. Han Fei snorted. How can I believe you? What if you are a demon? How can I face human beings if I release a demon to do evil? After a brief silence, the voice said, I can prove it. Han Fei smiled. Prove it to me. I'm really curious. How did you possess this demon? That's a weird technique. Can you control this sea demon? The sea demon seemed to be scared by Han Fei's calmness and couldn't help but ask, Aren't you scared? Scared? Han Fei said with a smile. You think such a thing can scare me? I'm afraid that your head was hit by an ironhead fish. The sea demon asked, How do you know me? Han Fei said disdainfully, I was wondering why there was nothing here when I was outside. That's because this low-level sea demon needs food. Only when it has food can you rely on it to survive, right? The sea demon didn't say anything. Han Fei continued, This city has been deserted for God knows how many years. How can an ordinary sea demon survive to this day? Do you think I'm stupid? You created a group of cannon fodder, in some way, just to let them find food. Besides, there's so many human bones on the ground. You must have eaten a lot of people, right? I don't want to talk to people like you. Give me a reason not to kill you. Since seeing Yang Riyun turn into a fish, Han Fei felt that nothing in this world was impossible. Maybe there were indeed mermaids in this world, such as this one in front of him. However, this was the level 3 fishery after all. Even if this inferior man-fish was indeed a demon, it was the lowest level demon. Even if it came back to life, Han Fei wouldn't be afraid. Besides, this thing was still tied up. After a long time, seeing that Han Fei was about to chop it, the sea demon finally said, "I have a secret technique of reincarnation." Han Fei said angrily, "Get lost. Do you have a secret technique of turning around? Don't tell me it's a treasure." The sea demon said, "This is the technique of reincarnation." Han Fei sneered. Reincarnation? It's like a hermit crab that crawled into someone else's shell. Fine, fine. Since you insist on giving it to me, I'll reluctantly accept it. What else? Han Fei didn't know how big the shadow of the sea demon in this inferior man-fish's body was. It couldn't be small. After all, the secret technique that he was so proud of was despised by someone else. He certainly didn't feel good about it. The sea demon said straightforwardly, "The technique of reincarnation is already the greatest opportunity. This mermaid body is the best evidence." Han Fei said, "Then I'll chop this mermaid to death first, and you can try reincarnating again. There are a few undead mermaids behind." Wait a minute. Asking for votes. Chapter 406. The man panicked. He believed that Han Fei would really hack the inferior man-fish to death. He knew the talented young man too well that he couldn't fool him with a few words. "I have a secret combat technique, and it's of a very high grade. I survived because of it." Han Fei smiled casually. "Oh, can you still use it?" "Yes." Han Fei tilted his head and stepped back. "Then why don't you use one? Let me see." "No. My secret technique consumes a lot of spiritual energy, but I'm running out of spiritual energy. Look at the body of this inferior man-fish. Does it look like it has energy?" Han Fei raised his finger, and a pillar of spiritual energy flowed into the inferior man-fish's body. Then, he tossed a random fish over. "Use one. Let me see. Are you a spirit gatherer?" The man was lost for words. "Shouldn't you be a soul warrior?" Han Fei said, "Give me 20 seconds. If you don't use it, I'll kill you right now." Han Fei widened his eyes and looked at the inferior man-fish curiously. He believed that if there was a reincarnation technique in this world, it couldn't have appeared in this man's body because the level 3 fishery was too low compared to the infinity realm. If such a shocking technique appeared here, it could only mean that the person who possessed this body was definitely a strong expert in the past. The inferior man-fish gobbled the fish crazily. A moment later, it suddenly opened its eyes, and a bright blue sheen appeared on its body. In the next moment, the inferior man-fish's body began to expand, and the muscles on its body bulged. Its strength seemed to be increasing rapidly. Isn't this an explosive secret technique? What's the side effect of using it? Han Fei saw that the inferior man-fish's level had risen from level 40 to level 45, and it was still rising. "Hey, you're giving me spiritual energy? You're asking to be killed." A shadow spurted out of the inferior man-fish's eyes. It seemed to be a spiritual power, but it also seemed to be on a higher level than spiritual power. Han Fei picked up the embroidery needle and smashed it down 3 times. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his spirit had been shocked, but it didn't matter. He simply withdrew his spiritual senses and guarded his mind. Pooh! Han Fei's nose and ears were bleeding, and his head hurt too much. He was shocked. Was this spiritual power so strong? Wait, he didn't give much spiritual energy just now, and the fish didn't have much energy either. How could it have become so strong? After 3 heavy smashes, Han Fei found, to his surprise, that he couldn't knock the fish at all. This secret technique is of a high level. Han Fei also had a secret technique like Fury before, but because it was too flawed, he deduced it once, but it didn't work very well, so he gave up. When he was in the Thug Academy, there were secret techniques of this type, but it seemed that these secret techniques all had great side effects. Besides, the higher the level of the secret technique, the greater the side effects. That was why Han Fei had been reluctant to deduce basic secret techniques like Fury. Han Fei didn't dragon, that he Fei could sue, that he had fish. Han Fei had found it strange before. If a level 40 inferior manfish could be killed by any peak-level dangling fisher, it wouldn't have survived until now, would it? Now, Han Fei finally realized that this man's secret technique was quite strong. If he hadn't been trapped, he probably wouldn't have been a match for him. Fish Sorrow Stab. Hiu. Han Fei saw hundreds of small stings darting at him. They were extremely fast and aggressive. At that moment, Han Fei spun all the blue he dragon knives in front of him to block the attack. After a series of clanging sounds, Han Fei looked at the dozens of stings that were half an inch deep into his body and said in surprise, "They're very strong. I'm hurt." Han Fei was quite surprised. Even a peak-level dangling fisher might not be able to hurt him with regular attacks. However, this crippled merman in front of him had actually injured him. The inferior manfish was dumbfounded. He looked at Han Fei in shock, as if he had eaten a stinky crab. Dude, how is it possible? How can an intermediate dangling fisher resist the fish sorrow stab? Han Fei shook off all the stings with his spiritual energy. Then he looked at the inferior manfish and asked, "What else do you have?" As he talked, Han Fei suddenly turned around with the embroidery needle, only to see that a weapon that looked like a harpoon collided with the embroidery needle. Han Fei stepped back a dozen steps, and the harpoon was broken by him because of its poor quality. Han Fei waved his hand. "What a great force! I'm afraid it's even greater than the full strength strike of a peak-level dangling fisher. Is this the effect of your secret technique?" Han Fei looked at the inferior manfish with great interest. "Anything else? Your spiritual power is stronger, your strength is stronger, and your body must be stronger too, right?" "Don't!" While the inferior manfish shouted in fear, Han Fei drew out the blood-drinking knife and slashed it. The intense light of the knife swept past the inferior manfish's body. Poochie! As he expected, even though the inferior manfish was much stronger, it still couldn't resist Han Fei's draw technique. However, to Han Fei's surprise, the inferior manfish didn't die either. Its chest was only cut open by his knife. But even so, he failed to split it into halves. Its body is stronger than that of a peak-level dangling fisher too. However, there are many strong ones. Could it be that the little manfish's body was too weak before? Han Fei nodded. That's possible. After all, this thing is neither a fish nor a human. However, it's already very strong to be able to resist my attack. The inferior manfish was almost crying. My secret technique has been activated. How could it not be able to deal with an intermediate dangling fisher? Even a peak-level dangling fisher wouldn't be able to survive it. Han Fei asked, "How long will the secret technique last?" Seeing that the inferior manfish was silent, Han Fei threatened, "If you don't talk, I'll cut you again. Let's see if you can resist it." The inferior manfish heaved a sigh. 20 seconds. With the energy I just obtained, that's all I can maintain. Han Fei's eyes glittered. So long? What's the consequence? What will be the consequences? Han Fei was more interested in this secret technique than the reincarnation technique. If the side effects of this secret technique weren't great, he would take it immediately. The inferior manfish seemed to have given up resisting and said unhurriedly, "The side effect is that you need to eat and obtain energy. That's very difficult." However, when Han Fei heard that the side effect was eating, he was overjoyed. "Wait a moment. You said that the side effect is eating? Will there be side effects such as extreme weakness, no longer being able to fight, and no longer being able to lift a knife?" The inferior manfish lowered its head. Those are all common secret techniques. In fact, secret techniques have always been supported by energy. Some people like to confuse spiritual energy with energy. The secret techniques they create naturally have a lot of side effects. Han Fei was amused. In terms of fighting, there may be people that I can't beat. But in terms of eating, I've never been scared of anyone, okay? Han Fei immediately said, "Give me the reincarnation technique and the secret technique, and I won't kill you." "How can I trust you?" Han Fei said with a smile. "You're a dead fish anyway. It doesn't matter whether I kill you or not. Even if I let you go, do you dare to go out? Do you know how many peak-level dangling fishers there are out there? I'm willing to bet that you'll be caught before you leave the outer city in your current appearance." A moment later, the secret technique was over, and the man controlled an undead mermaid to approach him and swallowed the ugly undead mermaid under Han Fei's disgusting gaze. "EW," Han Fei cursed. "Can you be any more disgusting?" The man smiled miserably. "You won't feel disgusted when you pass out from hunger." Han Fei snorted, raised his knife, and slashed at the chain. However, the chain was not broken despite the spluttering sparks. "Huh," the man sighed. "If the chain could be cut so easily, I wouldn't have been trapped here for so long." Han Fei hurried to run close and observe the chain, only to find that there was only a shallow mark on it. It was truly hard. Han Fei said, "Give me the secret technique and the reincarnation technique first, and then I'll save you." After a brief silence, the man said, "Do I look like an idiot? Will you stay and save me after I give them to you?" Han Fei said solemnly, "You don't look like an idiot. I'll definitely save you, because you're not as valuable as those chains." Fortunately, this person was chained up. Otherwise, he would have fought Han Fei to the death again. What the F***CK was he talking about? He was not as valuable as the chains? Han Fei took out a saw and canceled the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's possession. Then he said, "Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, time to work. Let's cut off the chains. They're as valuable as ultra-quality spiritual weapons." In the meantime, Han Fei looked at the inferior manfish. "Give me the secret technique and the reincarnation technique first, or I'll simply hack you to death, dismantle you, and then demolish this prison cell. That way, I'll get the chain sooner." The man thought for a long time and decided that it didn't matter if he gave it to him first. After the chains were unlocked, he would have other things to tempt this man with. Considering this man's greed, he wouldn't kill him. In the end, Han Fei got the two things. Han Fei chuckled for a while. Suddenly, the blood-drinking knife flashed. The inferior manfish was dumbfounded and roared, "No, I still have. What else do you have? I don't care." With a swing of the saber, the inferior manfish, who had lost the support of the secret technique, was directly cut into two. The man didn't understand at all. "Didn't you say you would let me go? Didn't you say you wouldn't kill me? I can even offer the reincarnation technique and such a secret technique. Can't I have better things? Are you an idiot?" Looking at the inferior manfish's body, Han Fei shook his head slightly. "If you were good-looking and didn't eat so many people, I wouldn't have killed you. Look, there are bones all over the ground. Do you expect me to let you go? Did you hit your head with an ironhead fish?" The hexagon starfish chuckled. "I feel that he's still hiding treasures." Han Fei grinned. "I know, but I don't care about those old things who have lived for countless years. You'll definitely get yourself killed if you play games with them. So, it's enough for me to get the secret technique." The second chapter, Asking for Votes, Chapter 406, The Secret Method of Combat, and a chapter. Chapter 407. Han Fei first took a look at the so-called reincarnation method. Grand Soul Attachment Technique, Heaven Level, Mid-Quality, remarks, use your powerful spiritual power to shatter the enemy's soul sea and possess the enemy's soul with a method of soul transfer phantom. If you don't return to your original body in time, you will never be able to return. As the life of the parasite passes, it will gradually die. Drawback, requires a strong mental power, or else one's soul may collapse at any time, consigned to eternal damnation. Deduced art, unknown deduction cost, 0/20,000,000. After reading this information, Han Fei couldn't help but feel speechless. It seems to be of a very high level. In a sense, it seemed that he could really be reincarnated. However, this technique didn't say whether he could parasitize again after parasitizing, nor did it say whether he could completely integrate with the parasitized creature after parasitizing. Besides, this technique seemed to have a high requirement on spiritual power. If he was not careful, he would die. After reading it, Han Fei wasn't interested at all, not to mention the 20 million deduction cost. He wouldn't even be willing to spend $1 million. My body is great. Why would I be a parasite? Doesn't cultivation take time? Then, Han Fei continued to read another secret technique. Mystic Turtle's secret technique, demon level, high quality. Remarks, watch the 1,000 turtles swallowing method, a secret technique of food created. By consuming a lot of energy, the body's potential can be induced and its combat power can be increased several times in a short period of time. Disadvantages. Once the energy is consumed too much, the body's potential will be overdrawn. Deduced art, unknown deduction cost, 0/5, 000. After reading the secret technique, the corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched slightly. Sure enough, this kind of secret technique that violently increased combat power had no side effects. Obviously, the guy didn't tell him that overusing it would overdraw the body's potential. However, for now, the Mystic Tortoise secret technique was the best secret technique Han Fei had ever seen. As long as he had enough energy, he could use it without worrying about overdrawing the body's potential. Thinking of the level of the inferior manfish's degradation, Han Fei couldn't help but guess that it was very likely that the person had overdrawn the inferior manfish's potential many times, so it degenerated. Han Fei thought about it. This secret technique could be cultivated. He was different from this inferior manfish. It had nothing to eat, but his forged the universe was full of food, a lot of food. For example, the yellow-blooded sea cucumber, which he had not had the chance to eat until now. It was an excellent seafood for replenishing energy and strengthening the body. Thinking of this, Han Fei could not help but feel a little hungry. It seemed that he had not had a full meal for a long time. Han Fei decided that he would stuff himself with food after he rescued Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei turned his head, and the two undead mermaids crouched in the corner in fear. It seemed that they were even more frightened after the inferior manfish died. Han Fei shook his head slightly. You guys look neither human nor ghost. You'd better die early. In the future, if you have the chance to reincarnate, you should either reincarnate as a fish or a human. Don't do all these fancy things and become a half-human, half-fish thing. After taking care of the two undead mermen, Han Fei and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp began to pull the chains. This chain is a good thing. Han Fei suspected that this inferior manfish must have had a high level before it was possessed. Otherwise, there was no need to tie him up with such good iron chains. After the undersea city was completely abandoned, no one would pay attention to this prison. As a result, the inferior manfish couldn't get out, and its body was occupied by someone else. It took Han Fei 8 hours to remove the chains together with the wall made of an unknown material. After that, Han Fei looked at the Mystic Turtle's secret technique, thought for a moment, and decided to deduce it. Since the secret technique could offset the side effects with energy, it shouldn't be a problem for him to deduce it. Deduce. Majestic Mystic Spell, Demon Level, Divine Quality. Note, this is a secret technique of food created by observing the 1,000 tortoise swallowing art. It summons the true body of the Mystic Turtle with enormous energy as an offering. Its combat ability will be multiplied according to the level of the caster in a short time. Current improvement, 5 times shortcoming. Once the energy is consumed too much, the body's potential will be exhausted. Deduced art, unknown deduction cost, 0/10, 000 inches. Shoot. Han Fei was dumbfounded. 5 times the combat ability? Is this F*King unbelievable? Other than the fact that the name wasn't too nice to hear, the degree of improvement was too terrifying, right? Han Fei could believe that it was a heaven-level, divine quality item. Han Fei swallowed. He was shocked. When he explored this prison, he didn't feel that he could find any opportunities in this damn place. If it weren't for the undead mermaids, if it weren't for his curiosity, he would have left this place a long time ago. This Mystic Tortoise secret technique was an unexpected gain. So far, Only the indestructible body and the big red trunk could match such a secret technique. He would never have imagined that he would stumble upon it so easily in a small mystical realm. Immediately, Han Fei couldn't stay calm. He immediately recalled the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and ran into Forge the Universe. As soon as he entered Forge the Universe, Han Fei simply fished out a yellow-blooded sea cucumber and cleaned it up quickly. Han Fei was not in a hurry to find Xia Xiaochan. The undersea city was so big, and there were so many secret realms and creatures. Even if all the people outside came in, it wouldn't be easy for them to find Xia Xiaochan. At this moment, Han Fei picked up ginger and garlic and found a pile of bamboo shoots and radishes from his pile of food and cut them into cubes. He boiled them in a pot of oil, then added vinegar and a little cumin petals to enhance the fragrance. In the end, he cut the 1-meter-long sea cucumber into sections, covered them with a layer of flour, and rolled them in the pot of oil again. Finally, he threw all the seasonings into the pot and stir-fried them. Immediately, the fragrance lingered for a long time. Han Fei had a smile on his face. Making sea cucumbers had to be very particular. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to taste it and would only feel that it was tasteless. But Han Fei was different. He knew how to infuse the flavor into the dish, and the sauce was the key. A moment later, the sea cucumber came out of the oven. Name: Sauce Sea Cucumber Introduction. This is a dish cooked with the essence of yellow-blooded sea cucumber and a variety of ingredients. It tastes smooth and bouncy, very tough, and full of energy. It's very rare. Level 29, quality rare, contains spiritual energy greater than 9,852 points. Effect: provides a huge amount of energy and can improve one's physique by 30% in a short period of time, 1 hour. This was one of the few dishes that Han Fei had made that had a special enhancement effect, mainly because the ingredients were very good. If he had eaten it raw, the result would have been different. Chomp! Han Fei bit it, and the juice spurted out. The taste was fresh and delicious. Since Han Fei came to the level 3 fishery, he had never had such a good time. He was in such a good mood. In the end, Han Fei grabbed it with his hands. When a yellow-blooded sea cucumber was half eaten by Han Fei, he already felt that his body was full of energy. His entire face and neck were red, as if he was drunk and about to go to his head. Wow, what a strong energy! Han Fei immediately stopped eating. This was different from swallowing spiritual fruits. When eating spiritual fruits, the demon purification pot would store energy, but the demon purification pot didn't store energy. Han Fei felt that his body was about to explode. It felt as if he had the candle dragon blood in his body. He believed that if he finished this whole yellow-blooded sea cucumber, his whole body would probably swell. Forget it. Let's save it for the next meal. When Han Fei came out of Forge the Universe, he felt that his whole body was hot. It was very comfortable to be stimulated by the seawater. He searched in this prison for a while, but didn't find any other creatures. Only the inferior manfish's side was full of bones and shells. There shouldn't be any opportunities there. It was a pity that those who had come in before met an inferior manfish who had a secret method. It would be strange if they couldn't beat it. They would probably end up as food in the end. After leaving the prison, Han Fei summoned Little White. Han Fei twisted his neck and moved his feet. Daughter, continue to look for Xia Xiaochan. This time, let's go straight. Daddy really wants to fight now. Little White. He didn't know whether Little White understood him or not. Anyway, this time, Han Fei set off quickly with Little White. They met a sea serpent a few kilometers away. In the hexagon starfish's shocked gaze, Han Fei tore the sea serpent alive with his hands. The hexagon starfish asked, "You just left me aside, and then where did you go? Why do I feel that you are not right when you come out again?" Han Fei didn't want to explain. Anyway, the hexagon starfish had asked him many times, "Don't ask, or I'll hit you." The hexagon starfish, of course, the hexagon starfish had no chance to enter Forge the Universe. However, he guessed that Han Fei should have an independent space, which should be the same as his hexagon space. He didn't feel strange. After all, if he could have a hexagon space, why couldn't Han Fei have a space? Along the way, Han Fei was like an ADHD teenager. Along the way, The most terrifying encounter he encountered was a level 38 exotic scorpion. The scorpion was also very innocent. It didn't plan to fight. Han Fei dragged it out of the ground and beat it up. It wanted to poke Han Fei, but it couldn't poke Han Fei. In the end, even its stinger was pulled out. Fortunately, it cut off its tail to survive and escape from its scorpion hole. Otherwise, it would have died at this moment. After another hour or so, Han Fei met 3 peak-level dangling fishers. However, as soon as the 3 people saw Han Fei, they directly crushed their flash stones and fled without thinking. At this moment, Han Fei stood at the entrance of a cave and sighed. Another secret realm? The author said, very soon. Let's wait for Xia Xiaochan to show up. Also, the writing speed of this article is not very fast, and the pace is relatively slow. You can enjoy it after 1 or 2 chapters, but after 2 chapters, you won't be able to level up. If you write like this, you'll almost collapse after writing 1,000,000 words. So, those who are used to reading a certain style of writing should calm down. Don't be in a hurry. As long as the story is good, it's fine. Chapter 408. In fact, this was not the second secret realm Han Fei encountered in the undersea city. To be precise, this should be the 9th one. However, except for the first prison, the others had all been hollowed out by others. He went in and saw that they were all broken walls. In this one, Han Fei almost missed it. Fortunately, when he passed by here, the hexagon starfish said there was a formation here, so Han Fei paid special attention to it. Han Fei didn't think much and jumped into the hole. However, there was nothing special this time. Before he entered the depths of the hole, Han Fei's spiritual perception reached the bottom. As soon as he touched the bottom, he was so scared that he swam up. He saw that the pit was filled with layers upon layers of nematodes. Han Fei didn't know what kind of insects they were, but there were so many of them that he could tell there were countless of them. Han Fei cursed. Damn it, this is a secret realm? What AF asterisk king secret realm? The hexagon starfish ran faster than Han Fei, darting to the hole like a dart while saying, "Starfish is scared to death." The hexagon starfish and Han Fei rushed out of the cave one after another, running as fast as they could. In the ocean, you can meet huge creatures. It doesn't matter. You're small, you can run. However, if you encounter such a nest, you will most likely have to run. For example, the dry leaf worm nest in the seaborne grassland. Han Fei was sure that even if he had reached the strength of a peak-level dangling fisher, he would be sucked dry if he went there. Although Han Fei didn't see what species the worms were, there were so many of them, and they were as disgusting as the dry leaf worm nest. Han Fei didn't dare to go there. The man and the starfish had only run for less than a few kilometers when the hole was filled with worms. However, after finding no creatures, those noodle-like worms intertwined again and crawled into the hole. Dozens of kilometers away, Han Fei was scared. It seemed that he couldn't jump into caves casually. He should have explored it with his fishing rod first. Han Fei said, "Master Hexagon, you are so heartless. You didn't even ask me to go with you." The hexagon starfish said, "Didn't you find it yourself? Anyway, you're up to no good. If you do this again, I'll squeeze your lifeblood." The 6 big eyes of the hexagon starfish kept rolling, and it almost wanted to slap Han Fei to death with its tentacles. Every day, he would use his natal blood essence to threaten him. When the day came that he obtained his natal blood essence, he would definitely slap him. However, after rolling his eyes, the hexagon starfish gave up. Han Fei's growth was too terrifying. When the time came, he might not be able to beat him. Han Fei summoned Xiao Bai and continued to lead the way. After spending nearly 6 hours, he met people 3 times. However, those people were far away, and when they saw Han Fei, they crushed their flash stones and ran away. Han Fei was also speechless. No, I have to turn into Hani again. These people came in later, so they probably didn't know him. Sure enough, half an hour later, Han Fei met a peak-level dangling fisher. When the peak-level dangling fisher saw Han Fei, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Isn't this the guy who asked for a fight outside?" Immediately, the man roared, "Come here." Seeing that someone was here, Han Fei's face changed, and he immediately swam over. "Brother, what a coincidence. The man frowned. How did you get here? Han Fei's face changed greatly. It's all Han Fei and Yang Huan's fault, especially the B***starred Yang Huan. He poisoned a lot of people. At that time, I was the vanguard and rushed into the inner city gate. Otherwise, I would have been poisoned to death. The man stared at Han Fei coldly. Let me ask you, how did you get here? How did you, an intermediate dangling fisher, get here? Han Fei thought for a moment. Although he didn't swim fast and explored the treasure trove occasionally, he seemed to have swum for almost 3,000 kilometers. It was no wonder that the man was suspicious. Han Fei blinked. I have flash stones. I flash when I see a monster. Huh, you have a lot of flash stones. Han Fei quickly stepped back, as if he were going to run away. The man sneered. You don't have a flash stone in your hand right now. Believe it or not, you will be dead when you take it out. Give me your sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei hesitated for a moment. Brother, let's talk nicely. Who is your brother? Impudent. An intermediate dangling fisher dares to call me a brother? Come on, give it to me in 3 seconds, and I can spare your life. The man looked at Han Fei arrogantly, only to see that Han Fei's face was gloomy, and he put his hand into his pocket. The man sneered. Huh, do you think you can break into the undersea city just because you're talented? What an ignorant fool. But when he sneered, he saw that Han Fei's hand suddenly glowed, and the man was about to escape. However, a kitchen knife had already slashed him. The man didn't even have time to activate his spiritual energy protective cover, and he only felt that his vitality was fading away. Han Fei stood in front of him with a smile. It's better to use the identity of Lihani. It's so King useful. As he spoke, Han Fei took out the man's sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei saw that the man was not dead yet, and was still looking at him in horror. Therefore, he smiled and said, You were the one who snatched it from me first. Otherwise, I would definitely let you go. Han Fei didn't know whether his words could be trusted or not. Anyway, as soon as he pushed, the man was dead. The hexagon starfish looked at Han Fei weighing the sea-swallowing seashell and couldn't help but roll his eyes. Terrifying, simply terrifying. Han Fei is a devil. A peak-level dangling fisher was killed by him with 1 slash. Will he also kill me in the future? Han Fei touched Little White's head. Let's go, daughter. Let's continue. On the way, Han Fei killed another advanced dangling fisher and entered 2 secret realms to no avail. Finally, led by Little White, they came to a battlefield. Yes, it was a battlefield. All the buildings here had already collapsed, and there were abandoned bricks and rubble everywhere. Some of those decayed spears and sword were lying on the ground. Some were buried in pits, and some were inserted in stones. Han Fei wondered, Master Hexagon Starfish, is there an array here? The Hexagon Starfish's eyes rolled for a long time. I don't think so, but I feel that this place is a bit dangerous. Han Fei swam forward for a while. This place was even more fierce than the battlefield in the outer city. Many people should have died here, so there should be heroic souls here. Yes, after entering the inner city, there were no low-level undead spirits, but heroic souls. Han Fei didn't touch those decayed weapons, but circled this place for a long time. Finally, he touched Little White's head and said, Daughter, are you really here? Little White swam downstream and finally stopped in front of those decayed swords and knives. Han Fei's face became slightly solemn. There were decayed weapons everywhere here, much more than in the outer city. Besides, what appeared here were not undead spirits, but heroic souls. If he moved, hundreds of heroic souls would come out, and even peak-level dangling fishers might not be able to defeat them. Han Fei pondered for a while, attached Little Gold to himself, and then put Little Black and Little White away. At the same time, he summoned the Blue Sea Wandering Dragon Rod. If something went wrong later, he could run faster with the help of Little Gold and the fishing rod. With a thought from Han Fei, dozens of Blue Sea Wandering Dragon daggers swept over these decayed weapons like a whirlwind. Hum! When the weapons were shattered, one white heroic soul after another appeared in all directions around Han Fei. Han Fei's eyelids twitched, and he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The hexagon starfish said, "There's an array. These heroic souls are the array." Han Fei's blood froze. "Can you find the entrance?" The hexagon starfish shook his head. "I can't. Should we break the array first?" Han Fei turned his head and looked at the heroic souls who had raised their weapons, and his face turned green. Damn it, they're going to hack me to death. Although panicked, Han Fei still took out the embroidery needle and pointed at the hero souls. "Come on, make way for me, or I'll beat you so hard that you can't even be a hero soul." Han Fei had just eaten a large pod of yellow-blooded sea cucumber and was full of energy. It would be good to try the majestic mystic spell today. He even had a little expectation. However, in the next moment, to Han Fei's astonishment, these heroic souls didn't attack. Instead, they raised their weapons at the same time and made the same movement, drawing circles in the water. Han Fei. Chapter 409. Han Fei didn't know if the hero souls counted as undead creatures, but each of them was as strong as an advanced dangling fisher or even stronger. And now, there were hundreds of these hero souls, and the number seemed to be increasing. Ordinary people, even a group of peak-level dangling fishers, wouldn't dare to say that they could stand still here. Running away would definitely be their first choice. For example, Han Fei was holding a flash stone in his hand. If there was anything wrong with these hero souls, he would definitely run away regardless of the treasure trove. However, the seemingly dangerous hero soul didn't attack. Instead, it drew a circle for Han Fei. This circle, as if born from nothingness, flickered and gradually turned into a gate. After this circle was formed, these hero souls raised their weapons, pointed at Han Fei, and pressed forward step by step, trying to force Han Fei into the circle. Han Fei gritted his teeth. Did Xia Xiaochan really run into this place? God knew what method she had to pass through all the obstacles and finally find this place. Han Fei hesitated for a moment and stepped into the circle. He didn't know if this was a right choice, but he knew that this treasure trove would definitely be one of the most dangerous in the undersea city, and ordinary treasure troves couldn't compare with it at all. His eyes wandered, and his vision was hazy as if it were an illusion. When Han Fei could see this place clearly, he was shocked to find that he was standing on a street, and around him there were all kinds of people coming and going. Han Fei immediately wondered if he had entered a nightmare. The undersea city was something that happened countless years ago. Was there an underground city here? The hexagon starfish asked. "Where is this?" Han Fei's eyes widened. "Don't talk. Hey boy, don't get in the way." A big man carrying a long knife as tall as a man walked past Han Fei and pushed him to the side of the road. To Han Fei's shock, a man and a woman were walking past him and talking to each other. The man said, "Xiaoi, this big fish tide is not a joke. You better not go." The woman said, "No, I'm also very strong. I can fight. Since the main city fell, there have been hundreds of siege battles, and I've participated in more than a dozen of them. Man, listen to me. It's a little different this time. It's said that the fish tide is especially fierce." "No, I want to go. I want to be by your side." Han Fei only heard a few simple words, and the couple had already gone far away. The main city has fallen? Big fish tide? Hundreds of attacks? Han Fei was confused. He was about to continue eavesdropping on the couple's conversation when he was chided by a group of soldiers who rushed out from behind. This group of soldiers was fully armed, and they were all clad in battle robes. The weapons in their hands were all battle spears that were almost as tall as their bodies. That was not the point. What shocked Han Fei was that the dozens of soldiers in this team were all peak-level dangling fishers. When this group of people walked past, a soldier was left behind. The man climbed to a roof and shouted from there, "Attention, everyone! The 187th fish tide is coming. Everyone, get ready for battle before tonight." All the dangling fishers gathered in the outer city, but those who disobey will be executed. After shouting those words, the soldier jumped down from the roof and chased after the main force. After the soldier shouted, the crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. Someone shouted, "Damn it, I've waited for so long. I'm going to earn some honor this time." Someone quickly squeezed through the crowd. "Damn it, let's go home and have sex with our wives." Someone yelled, son of a b asterisk tsh, there's a fish tide every year. Can't you just let us have sex? Someone shouted crazily. Damn it. Someone was horrified. So soon? Didn't you say that it would take 2 or 3 days? The street, which had been relatively peaceful, was immediately filled with noise and clamor. Han Fei gasped hard. This time, it didn't seem to be a dream or an environment. All of this was incomparably real. It was so real that he could see the sun in the sky and feel its warmth. Han Fei asked, Master Hexagon Starfish, is there such a realistic illusion? The hexagon starfish hid on Han Fei's shoulder and didn't dare to open his eyes. He just subconsciously replied, It doesn't seem to be an illusion. Han Fei stood aside and happened to stand in front of a stall selling shrimp dumplings. The boss was an old man who was an advanced great fishing master. He looked at Han Fei and said, Little friend, would you like a shrimp dumpling? We're going to fight a war. You can't work until you're full. Han Fei rolled his eyes and asked with a smile, How much is a shrimp? The boss smiled and said, Not much, not much. Just one mid-quality pearl. My shrimp dumplings are all made of level, 25 red feather shrimp. I guarantee you'll be satisfied with the taste. Han Fei took out a mid-quality pearl and enjoyed it in front of the stall while the boss chuckled. After taking a bite, Han Fei was sure that this was definitely not an illusion. Both the taste buds and the feeling of the shrimp juice flowing on the tip of his tongue were extremely real. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Boss, do you think I can survive tonight? The boss was stunned for a moment and then said with a smile, Yes, you definitely can. You can't die anymore. The war has been going on for more than 200 years. Almost all of us are dead. Han Fei's heart trembled. For some reason, when he heard the boss's words, he felt his heart tremble, as if it was a sigh from the bottom of his heart. Han Fei smiled and said, Then I definitely won't die. I haven't found a girlfriend yet. Boss, why do I find that there are fewer girls in our city? The boss joked, Do you want to find a girlfriend? However, it's hard to find a girlfriend now. Girls of your age who didn't die in the war are basically married. It's hard. Since the birth policy was encouraged 100 years ago, most girls are engaged at the age of 12, let alone girls of your age. You have to fight hard and make some achievements. When you can enter the garrison guard, I guarantee that you will be able to find a wife. Originally, Han Fei just looked at the people coming and going on the street, but there were not many girls, so he asked casually. Who knew that he would get such a reply? Hearing the boss's words, Han Fei felt that he had become a saint. Smack. Han Fei suddenly slapped his thigh. It's over. The old man asked, Young man, what's wrong with you? Are my shrimp dumplings not delicious? Han Fei quickly said, No, the shrimp dumplings are very good. I remember that I still have something to do. The old man smiled and said, If you want to go, just go. Otherwise, when the big fish tide comes, who knows if there will be a tomorrow? Han Fei's face changed. According to the boss, girls were married off at the age of 12. Then Xia Xiaochan was already 15 years old. Didn't she also become a saint? No, Xia Xiaochan was beautiful. If she was in such a place, there would definitely be a lot of people chasing after her. Han Fei, who had just taken 2 steps, immediately ran back and asked the stall owner, Boss, do you think there are still 15-year-old girls in our city who haven't married yet? The old man smiled and said, Of course there are. It's just that it's very rare. Han Fei asked, Have you seen one? Which one is the most beautiful? The old man shook his head with a smile. How would I know? What? Do you want to find a girl to do it before going to the battlefield? Then you might as well hold a sign and shout. Maybe the success rate will be higher. Han Fei nodded. That made sense. In this place, girls were so scarce and the big fish tide was coming. At this moment, everyone must be preparing for war and going crazy. It shouldn't be a problem to do anything, right? After bidding farewell to the stall owner, Han Fei turned around and summoned Little White. Daughter, can you find Xia Xiaochan? However, this time Little White failed. Looking at the crowded streets, she was confused for a moment, as if she had lost her sense of direction. Han Fei was speechless. Damn it, do I really have to hold a sign? The city is so big. How long will it take to hold a sign? After careful consideration, Han Fei decided that it was impossible to hold a sign. There were too many people, and the city was big. how difficult it was to find a person in this vast sea of people. Han Fei asked, Master Hexagon, do you think I will be shot down if I fly into the sky? The hexagon starfish scratched Han Fei. Definitely. Han Fei squeezed in the crazy crowd for a long time and finally squeezed in front of a shop, which turned out to be a shop selling fish skins. When the female boss saw Han Fei, she couldn't help but smile. Little brother, do you want to buy fish skins? Han Fei pointed to the street. Are you still in the mood to sell fish skins in this situation? The female boss laughed like a flower. Are you saying that life is not going to be easy? War is war, and selling things is selling things. Little brother, I see that you don't even have a battle suit on you. Shall I make one for you? The war is about to begin, and I will only charge you 200 mid-quality pearls. Han Fei quickly waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. Suddenly, Han Fei paused. Boss, I want all the fish skins here. Chapter 410. In a certain corner of the city, there's a group of teenage boys, the youngest of whom was probably only 10 years old, and the oldest was at most 15 years old. They were chasing a little girl. Girl, I participated in 2 big fish tides. Will you marry me? I promise I won't die this time. Girl, don't listen to him. I've killed more than 30 mess swallowing worms. In terms of combat power, I'm the strongest. Xiao Xiaochan, marry me. I really like you. Xiaochan, I'm the most handsome. In terms of appearance, they are all ironhead fish. Girl, as long as you stay with me today, I will never let you get hurt. Girl, Xiao Xiaochan was going crazy. Since she came to this damn place, she had been pursued all the time. No matter where she went and who she met, those people insisted on marrying her as if they had never seen a woman before. She clearly did not know these people at all, but they still came over to flatter her and boasted about herself to the heavens. Even young boys as young as 8 years old and old men as old as 80 years old had proposed to him. Almost all the ages in between had come to propose to him. Xiao Xiaochan turned around and said angrily, Get out of here, all of you. I won't marry anyone. I'm still young. Someone responded, Girl, you are not young. I have a cousin who gave birth to 3 children when she was your age. Xiao Xiaochan turned around and kicked the boy away. Is your cousin a pig? She had 3 children at the age of 15? Wouldn't she have 30 or 40 children when she was 50 years old? The boy was not annoyed but chuckled and said, Haha, I like girls like you. You're strong. One of the boys seemed to want to prove his strength and was about to carry Xiao Xiaochan home. As a result, Xiao Xiaochan stabbed him twice. 2 holes were poked in his stomach. Then, lying on the ground, he shouted, Spirit gatherers, give me a healing technique. However, several spirit gatherers behind Xiao Xiaochan showed a contemptuous look. Scum, you think you can carry her just because you want to? Why don't you take a look at yourself first? A spirit gatherer sneered. You deserve it. Most people did not think much of it. It just so happened that one of them was disabled, and there was one less competitor. For these people, as long as they could marry Xiao Xiaochan, it would be the happiest thing in their lives. Xiao Xiaochan felt that she was really going crazy. Over the past few days, she had practically circled the entire city, but she still couldn't find the slightest possibility of leaving. Swoosh! With a flash, Xiao Xiaochan appeared on a roof 100 meters away. Looking at the people chasing after her, she couldn't help but shout, I don't know you. Go find someone else. While Xiao Xiaochan was yelling at the group of people angrily, her eyes suddenly widened and she was completely stunned. He could only see a few large words floating in the sky at least dozens of miles away from him. Xiao Xiaochan, I'm here. Xiao Xiaochan was stunned. The teenagers chasing Xiao Xiaochan were stunned. Many people in the city were stunned. At this moment, the most dumbfounded one was none other than the lady boss who sold fish skins to Han Fei. She watched Han Fei sew the words one piece of fish skin after another. Each of these words was at least 30 meters long. Han Fei was afraid that if he sewed them too small, people wouldn't be able to see them at all. In fact, ordinary people without cultivation might not be able to see them clearly. The lady boss even asked, Did you buy my shop just to make these words? Han Fei nodded. Yes. If it weren't for the lack of fish skins in your shop, I could have made them bigger. The lady boss sighed. You must like that girl very much, right? Han Fei grinned. Her? TSK. Forget it. Han Fei ran in the city for a long time with a huge fish skin kite fastened to a 9-star chain, and every time he would be surrounded by a lot of people. Many people marveled at Han Fei's creativity and commented on it here. A man said solemnly, "This is a good idea. Any young lady would not be able to resist such a confession." A woman pinched the man next to her. "Look at him. Look at yourself." Someone sighed. "It's a pity that this boy already has someone he likes. Otherwise, I would definitely marry my daughter to him." Someone sneered. "Are you kidding me? Your daughter is only 7 years old. Could she give birth to a child?" The bustling crowd and the tense atmosphere were immediately diluted by Han Fei's behavior. After running for about 2 hours, he saw a group of little girls coming. When a little girl who was only 11 or 12 years old saw Han Fei, her eyes lit up. "It's you, Han Fei." The girl suddenly ran up and hugged Han Fei. "I can marry you, Han Fei." Before Han Fei said anything, 2 more girls ran over, each holding one of Han Fei's arms. "I'm prettier. I'll marry him first." "I'm prettier than you. I'll marry him first." "Get out of the way. I have the best figure. He's mine." "Get out of the way. I'm the first to arrive." Han Fei hurriedly pushed the girls out. "Girls, let me tell you, don't touch me. I won't marry you." However, in the next moment, a little girl shouted, "I don't need you to marry me. I just want to have children with you." "Pooh." Han Fei was dumbfounded. "What the hell are you talking about? How old are you? You're only as tall as my chest, and you want to have children with me? Are you serious?" However, the onlookers burst into laughter. "Kid, are you happy now? But there are so many little girls. You can't choose too many, or there won't be enough time." Someone laughed. "For the sake of today's battle, you can choose at most 3, no more." "How?" Han Fei suddenly let out a strange cry, dragged the balloon, and ran wildly. "Should I choose your sister? You're too young. I'll be beaten to death outside." Han Fei's tears were about to fall. What kind of era is this? Just because they have to fight, they have to keep making little girls? That's too much. People living in this era are simply F***ing. However, Han Fei couldn't run fast at all because the balloon in the sky was still in his hand. Before he ran out 100 meters, he was caught up by a group of little girls behind him. Some held his waist, and some held his arms. Han Fei said angrily, "Let go, all of you, let go. I'm not interested in little kids." With a burst of spiritual energy, these little girls were shaken away, and he himself hung on the kite line and floated into the sky with the balloon. However, the good times didn't last long. Before Han Fei floated out 100 meters, he felt that his feet were entangled by vines. He looked down, only to see a tall little girl standing with her head raised, pointing at Han Fei and saying, "I think you could be my man." Han Fei said, "I don't think you can be my woman." The girl frowned. "Why? I'm already half a step away from becoming a hanging fisher. After this battle, I will definitely make a breakthrough." Han Fei grimaced. I already have someone I like." The girl looked at the balloon in the sky and said, "Is that Xia Xiaochan better than me?" Before Han Fei spoke, he saw on the roof in the distance a vigorous figure was jumping in the air. The flashing power swept over 100 meters in the blink of an eye, and then over 1,000 meters in the blink of an eye. Han Fei was overjoyed and said to the girl who was dragging him on the ground, "Look, the girl I've been waiting for is here. Girl, let go of me." However, the girl stepped on the vines, rose into the air, and glanced at Xia Xiaochan. "She is just an intermediate dangling fisher." Han Fei was speechless. "I'm also an intermediate dangling fisher. If I'm an intermediate dangling fisher, I should be with an intermediate one." 100 meters away, Xia Xiaochan flashed and disappeared, and in the next second, she suddenly appeared in front of Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan was so excited that the moment she saw Han Fei, she immediately cried and laughed, and tears really fell down. Xia Xiaochan hugged Han Fei, and her tears and snot fell down in an instant. "Sob, I can't find my way back. I thought I was going to stay here for the rest of my life." Han Fei opened his hands, looked at the girl who was still looking at him, and said, "Look, this is the person I've been waiting for." Han Fei hugged Xia Xiaochan with both hands and naturally let go of the balloon. With a tap of his foot, He landed on a roof. Xia Xiaochan was still crying and laughing, but Han Fei saw the teenagers who were running over following Xia Xiaochan. Seeing this, those teenagers were furious. Beast, let go of that girl. A teenager was furious. Asshole, come at me if you can. It's really despicable to deceive little girls in this way. Someone directly drew his sword. I want to challenge you. What's your name? Today, I will make you regret it. For a moment, a group of teenagers all talked at once and looked at Han Fei furiously. Han Fei looked at those teenagers blankly and then at the girls who were staring at him. Suddenly, he made a move. Oh! Han Fei tilted his head and kissed Xia Xiaochan on the cheek. Chapter 411. Han Fei felt that Xia Xiaochan's body suddenly stiffened in his arms. Before he could speak, he felt that his lower abdomen was stabbed twice. Immediately afterward, Han Fei was kicked to the ground. Han Fei covered his belly. Cooperate, understand? Xia Xiaochan blushed. Who let you kiss me? Han Fei touched his belly and looked at it. Seeing that it wasn't stabbed, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, Look behind you first. Xia Xiaochan looked back, only to see that the ferocious boy's eyes were glinting. A boy said, It seems that they're not on good terms. Xia Xiaochan, marry me. I promise to treat you well. The boys scrambled to be the first, which scared Xia Xiaochan. She quickly stood behind Han Fei and pointed at them with a dagger. Don't come over. And the girl just now looked at Han Fei. It seems that she doesn't like you very much. Han Fei glared at these boys and girls. What the hell do you know? Beating and scolding is love. Beating and scolding is love. What do you know about iron-head fish? Behind the girl, there were other girls. At this moment, they said, We are also very good at fighting. Han Fei whispered to Xia Xiaochan. Did you see that? They want to get married so badly. Xia Xiaochan nodded quickly, feeling that these people's brains were a bit abnormal. If there were only one or two of them, it wouldn't be a big deal. But so many people who she had never seen before suddenly came to her and said that they wanted to marry her. Wasn't it terrifying? Han Fei said, I'll help you solve the boy's problem, and you help me solve the girl's problem. Xia Xiaochan nodded quickly. Okay, good idea. Let's do that. Han Fei took a step forward, carrying the embroidery needle on his shoulder, and said aggressively, All the men, listen to me. Xia Xiaochan is mine. You weaklings, get out of here. If you don't accept it, I will beat you until you do. Xia Xiaochan followed suit. That's right. You girls, get out of here too. Han Fei is mine. Oh, interesting. It seems that there is still a show to watch before the battle. Not bad. Haha, I really envy these kids. To be able to make it so earth-shattering when it comes to finding a partner. It's just like how I was back then. Get lost. Demeanor my ass. Back then, you were a coward. Under the roof, the group of fish-eating people stopped preparing for the battle and watched the scene happily. There were even people carrying sea melon seeds over to sell. In an instant, they were all snapped up. While eating melon seeds, many people raised their heads and watched the fight between Han Fei and the others. On the roof, the teenagers on Han Fei's opposite side were furious, as if their little white fish had been snatched away. A boy pointed his sword at Han Fei. I want to duel with you. Han Fei smiled faintly. If you lose, you'll have to get out of here. The young man's face turned sinister. I'll lose. You're just an intermediate dangling fisher. I advise you to leave. Han Fei didn't use any fancy moves and just smashed him with the rod. The sword-bearing young man sneered. There was a green glow on the sword, which was entangled by dragons and flashed with colorful light. He was fearless in the face of Han Fei's attack. Gotcha! BM. However, before the smile on the young man's face faded, he was sent flying hundreds of meters away, his mouth and nose bleeding and his hands trembling. Han Fei carried the embroidery needle on his shoulder again. I hate people like you the most. You don't have any skills at all. Someone in the crowd was surprised. Huh, this kid is very strong. He doesn't look like an intermediate dangling fisher. Someone nodded. Of course, the sword-bearing young man is an advanced dangling fisher. He can't even take a blow from him, which means that the strength of this young man is comparable to a peak-level dangling fisher. The teenagers on the opposite side of Han Fei suddenly looked solemn. This person is stronger than I thought. It seems that I have to use my spiritual beast. On the other side, the eyes of the girls who took a fancy to Han Fei all lit up. Girls, especially in this era, all liked the strong. Xia Xiaochan's face was a little black. She pointed at those girls and said, "What are you looking at? Your opponent is me." A girl walked forward. "Let me." This girl was an armorist. As soon as the armor box was opened, dozens of long whips, like vines, rolled out. However, unlike vines, these weapons seemed to be made by special means, were extremely flexible, and were all mid-quality spiritual weapons. However, Xia Xiaochan didn't care at all. She directly turned into a shadow, and before the girl on the opposite side reacted, the spiritual energy protective cover on the girl's body was broken, and then she was stabbed twice. Xia Xiaochan generally wouldn't show mercy when it came to fighting. If it was a fight between boys, she might show mercy to girls, but she didn't have such a concept. The first thing he did was to stab his opponent's waist with 2 knives. Her fighting speed was even faster than Han Fei's. At least Han Fei had time to swing his rod, but Xia Xiaochan really ended the battle in the blink of an eye. Immediately, the combat strength of Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan caused countless people to exclaim. Someone said in surprise, "So strong. These 2 teenagers are very strong." Someone exclaimed, "This is the realm of an intermediate dangling fisher. What if they become peak-level dangling fishers?" Han Fei grinned. Xia Xiaochan was still the same Xia Xiaochan. The gentle Xia Xiaochan didn't exist. The violent Xia Xiaochan was more comfortable to look at. Han Fei said lazily, "Who's next? Or do you all come together? I'm fine with either of you." Realizing Han Fei's strength, a peak-level dangling fisher walked out of the group of teenagers. He was a hunter. He had fused with his spiritual beast, and his 2 arms were like 2 scimitars at the moment. Han Fei smiled. "Come on, let me see if you are qualified to be a peak-level dangling fisher." In the next second, this person disappeared. In Han Fei's spiritual perception, there were 2 rotating scimitars cutting at him from the left and right respectively. Han Fei swept out, sparks splashed in the air, and the vibrating force set off a layer of air ripples within 100 meters. Then, Han Fei suddenly tilted his head, and at the same time, the water-dividing seal was already in his hand. In an instant, the water-dividing seal shone brightly. Clang, clang, clang. In the air, the boy blocked it with his arms and was sent flying backward, blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. However, the boy didn't admit defeat. He kicked the 2 daggers at Han Fei with his feet as knives. In the next moment, someone exclaimed, "F***CK. He's using his body to block spiritual weapons." Han Fei suddenly stretched out his hands, grabbed the 2 spiritual daggers, and threw them directly at the boy in the air. Puff! Puff! However, to Han Fei's disappointment, the spiritual weapons belonged to the boy. His spiritual weapons could be easily stored in his body. Therefore, this blow didn't hurt the boy. But Han Fei's Blue Sea Wandering Dragon Rod had already been hooked out. In the eyes of everyone, Han Fei was extremely fast, holding a small seal and slapping it hard at the boy who was caught. Under everyone's horrified gaze, Han Fei grabbed the boy's neck with one hand. "Weak, you're too weak. Come at me together." While Han Fei shouted, he took the lead, carrying the embroidery needle and rushing into the crowd. "Kill him. Together." Arrogant, this guy must have hidden his strength to prevent Xia Xiaochan from marrying him. "Don't be a coward. Let's fight." Han Fei's side fell into a melee. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan had just drilled through the vine defense of the peak-level dangling fisher manipulator and had already begun to fight. In the eyes of outsiders, the battle scene of this group of teenagers was extremely fierce. About the time it takes to burn half an incense stick. On Xia Xiaochan's side, all the girls who chased Han Fei, including the peak-level dangling fisher, were lying on the ground, covering their stomachs. On Han Fei's side, all the teenagers had bruised noses and swollen faces, supporting each other. Han Fei gave Xia Xiaochan a look. Your strength has improved so fast." Xia Xiaochan glanced at Han Fei's belly. "Your physique seems to have become much stronger." After the fierce battle, the girls groaned and left, and some of them looked at Han Fei reluctantly. On the boys' side, although they were all defeated, they were unwilling to give up. They really thought Xia Xiaochan was too beautiful. Han Fei said angrily, "What are you looking at? Get out of here. Do you want to be beaten?" Immediately, a boy cursed, "I bet you won't live past tonight. At that time, Xia Xiaochan will still be ours." Han Fei directly raised the embroidery needle, scaring these teenagers and making them retreat with a swish. Huh! Seeing that no one was bothering her, Xia Xiaochan was overjoyed. She pulled Han Fei and said, "Come on, let's get out of here." After a while, on a remote roof, Xia Xiaochan blushed. "I'm still young. I can't have children." Han Fei. At the same time, Chapter 412. Looking at Xia Xiaochan's serious expression, Han Fei was stunned. "No, wait a minute. Where did you get the baby?" Xia Xiaochan glared at Han Fei angrily. "It's all your fault." Han Fei. Han Fei was dumbfounded. "No, wait a minute. Let me think. Wait a minute. I just met you. Why are you blaming me?" Xia Xiaochan had already raised her dagger. "Who asked you to kiss me?" Han Fei was shocked. That was just an impulse." Yes. You asked me to have a baby out of impulse." "Why?" Han Fei was confused. "Wait a minute. What does kissing you have to do with whether you have a baby or not?" Xia Xiaochan glared at Han Fei angrily. "I'm your biological son. If you kiss me, you'll have a baby." "Pooh." Han Fei was so scared that he sat on the roof. "Are you trying to scare me to death? Damn it. Your IQ. No, you have no IQ at all." Xia Xiaochan picked up the dagger and poked it, saying angrily, "What's with your face? You don't want to be responsible, do you?" Han Fei pulled the dagger from his waist and said, "Is there something wrong with your understanding? Biological, that is, no. Where did you hear this term?" Han Fei was speechless. She was a smart girl. Why did she suddenly lose her IQ? Xia Xiaochan snorted. "Isn't it because of this damn place? As soon as I showed up, the B** starred followed me, saying that he was the city lord's biological son. He emphasized it many times, and he wanted to kiss me. Of course, I couldn't let him succeed, so I stabbed him." Han Fei was immediately furious. "B** starred, don't worry. When I meet him later, I will beat him up again for you." Then Han Fei asked, "Is it the first time in your life that you have heard the word biological son?" Xia Xiaochan stared at Han Fei. "Yes. My teacher won't teach me how to have a baby." Han Fei. In the end, Han Fei spent a long time teaching Xia Xiaochan the common words and basic common sense of human beings. In the end, Xia Xiaochan was stunned for a while and asked, "So I won't have children?" Han Fei said gloomily, "Of course, do you think it's so easy to have a baby? How old are you? And you're already thinking of having children?" Xia Xiaochan muttered. "Then they said that I'm a big girl, and no one will want me if I don't get married." Han Fei rolled his eyes at her. "Are you stupid? In the past 200 years, there have been nearly 200 wars in this city. The older people have all died long ago. If they don't work hard to give birth to children, wouldn't their clan be exterminated?" Xia Xiaochan nodded. "I see. So, I really won't have children?" Han Fei didn't bother to talk to her. Luckily, he was here. Otherwise, within 3 to 5 days, she would be carried home to be the wife of a bandit. Suddenly, Xia Xiaochan leaned to Han Fei and said, "Then kiss me again." Puff, cough, cough, cough. Han Fei was dumbfounded. He had never heard such an unreasonable request in his life. Han Fei stammered, No, what did you say?" Xia Xiaochan looked at Han Fei seriously and said, "Kiss me again. That feeling is very strange." Han Fei swallowed in a daze. Xia Xiaochan was already a big girl, but now she was already slim and graceful. No matter how calm Han Fei was, he couldn't stay calm when he heard such an unreasonable request. Han Fei said, Then close your eyes. If you want to kiss me, just kiss me. Why do you want me to close my eyes?" Han Fei waved his hand and said, "Well, I just want you to feel it. Okay?" Xia Xiaochan tilted her head and said, "Then hurry up." Seeing Xia Xiaochan close her eyes, Han Fei immediately swallowed. No one knew that the story would develop like this. It turns out that I like to be passive. Han Fei cleared his throat and said, "I'm going to kiss you." "Okay, Hurry up. Han Fei licked his lips, took a deep breath, and kissed Xia Xiaochan's mouth. Of course, kissing on the cheek was not the same as kissing on the mouth. Before Han Fei could feel it, he felt that he was sent flying into the sky like a kite with a broken string. Xia Xiaochan's kick almost made him throw up his dinner from last night. Pooh! You asked me to kiss you. In the sky, Han Fei saw Xia Xiaochan holding her two little fists in front of her chest, her face flushed and even her neck red. She was frozen there, and her eyes were still closed. Han Fei didn't dare to speak or disturb her. After he stabilized his body and fell from the sky, he rubbed his belly and leaned towards Xia Xiaochan. After a long time, Han Fei saw Xia Xiaochan open her eyes, trembling. Han Fei asked carefully in a soft voice, "Well, what did you feel?" Xia Xiaochan looked at Han Fei weirdly. It's weird. Do other people kiss me like this too?" Han Fei was shocked and scolded angrily. "Shut up. Let me tell you, once you have kissed one person, you can't do it with a second person." Xia Xiaochan asked curiously why. Han Fei raised his head and said, "Because you can't." Xia Xiaochan asked, "Not even Quang Quang and Zhang Xuanyu?" Han Fei's face turned cold. "Of course not. You can only kiss one man in your life." Xia Xiaochan asked, "Only men? What about Xiao Bai?" Xiao Bai is a woman. Han Fei couldn't help but imagine Xia Xiaochan and Luo Xiao Bai kissing each other. He couldn't help but shiver and then have goosebumps. No, not with Luo Xiao Bai, not with anyone. Xia Xiaochan said regretfully, "Why?" Han Fei was speechless. "Why? In any case, you have to remember this. Never, ever do something like this with a second person. Not only kissing, but also holding hands, let alone sleeping together." Xia Xiaochan snorted. "You just said that sleeping will give birth to a child." Han Fei covered his head with one hand. "Oh, yes, sleeping with a man will give birth to a child. So, from now on, you can only sleep with me." "Bah, I won't sleep with you. Don't expect me to give birth to a child." Han Fei nodded. "That's up to you. Anyway, I don't care." Xia Xiaochan licked her lips, blinked her eyes, and said, "Give me another kiss. Let's see." Han Fei blinked his eyes. "Then don't kick me this time. Don't move." "I won't move." After a moment, Han Fei, who was in midair, didn't know how to believe her. It was just a kiss and a kick. It seemed to be a good deal. Han Fei didn't know how many times he had flown to the sky. Anyway, at this moment, the two of them were sitting on a very high building, looking at the city. Xia Xiaochan said solemnly, "I have been here for 7 days. I have been to the entire inner city and the outer city. Without the teleportation array, I was going to go to sea. However, there are people guarding the outer city, saying that there will be a war recently, so I'm not allowed to go to sea." Han Fei asked in surprise, "So you haven't gone out until now?" Xia Xiaochan shook her head. "No." Han Fei took a deep breath and said, "I suspect that we are not in our time at all." Xia Xiaochan was confused. "Huh?" Han Fei said, "We came to the time before the undersea city was destroyed. We must have passed through a certain timeline. If we want to go back, we must have experienced something special." Xia Xiaochan seemed to have the same suspicion. "So, we are not in the level 3 fishery?" Han Fei shook his head. "The level 3 fishery is still the level 3 fishery. But this level 3 fishery may not be the level 3 fishery we know." Han Fei couldn't help but lick his lips. "I wonder if the seaborne grassland still exists at this time? If the seaborne grassland still exists, is the big red trunk still there? Can I go and chop the big red trunk again? Although it sounds weird, what if it's possible?" Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly a loud conch horn sounded. Then, in many corners of the city, conch horns began to ring. To Han Fei's surprise, a hidden fisher passed by in the sky and shouted, "All dangling fishers within 100 kilometers, gather at the south gate. A big fish tide is coming. Beep, beep, beep." For a time, the whole city was in motion. The streets were crowded with people, and many people jumped directly from the roofs. Xia Xiaochan quickly got up and said, "Let's go and have a look. Maybe this is our chance to go back." Han Fei grabbed her and said, "Wait a minute. Don't worry. After all, this is not our war. We'll go there last. It's better to see it from the perspective of a bystander. Do you want to rush to the forefront? Han Fei was more far-sighted. He and Xia Xiaochan happened to come here. The 187th Big Fish Tide was likely to be the battle to destroy the city. In a war where everyone was dead, of course, he would retreat if he could. Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan and said, "Give me your hand." Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei said, "Open your 5 fingers like me." While Xia Xiaochan was puzzled, Han Fei put his hand on hers and nodded solemnly. "Well, yes, follow me now. Don't run around." Xia Xiaochan frowned. "It's awkward. I'd better hold a dagger." Han Fei said, "Be a good girl." Cell phone website. Chapter 413. While everyone was running to the south gate of the city solemnly, only Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were strolling on the roofs, hand in hand. Especially Xia Xiaochan. She always felt uncomfortable. One of her hands was held by Han Fei, and the other hand was still holding her dagger. She thought to herself, "Why am I being held by him?" However, Xia Xiaochan also found a particularly interesting thing. Holding hands, they could swing their arms. Swaying back and forth, it seemed quite interesting. The people on the street were decreasing rapidly. At this moment, a figure flew over Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's heads. Swish! A figure fell from the sky. It was a beautiful woman about 30 years old. Dressed in a red robe, she seemed to have a very high status. The beautiful woman glanced at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan, then at their holding hands, and said leisurely, "Just now, did you put those words in the sky?" Seeing that the hidden fisher was coming, Han Fei chuckled and said, "Yes, yes, yes." The beautiful woman glanced at Xia Xiaochan. "What a beauty! Try to survive." With that, the beautiful woman spread her wings and flew away. In the end, she said, "Only by surviving can you better fall in love." Xia Xiaochan sighed. "Didn't she notice the difference between us?" Han Fei nodded. "Of course, we are living people now, not fake. Of course, no one will find anything wrong with us." Half an hour later, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were still walking leisurely on the deserted street. The people on both sides of the road were standing in front of their houses. None of them had reached the realm of dangling fishers, so they couldn't go to the outer city to participate in the battle. Although there were few people walking on the street at this moment, these people didn't urge Xia Xiaochan and Xia Xiaochan. There were even quite a few people who were smiling at them and talking to them. "Hey, you 2 children, come back alive. Don't die outside. Boy, don't be reckless in the outer city. If you can't beat them, don't go. Even if the sky falls, there will be someone taller. Girl, don't be separated from him. If you are separated in the outer city, it will not be easy to find you." The blessings and exhortations made Han Fei feel strange, but at the same time, he felt warm in his heart. This city was better than he had imagined. The people in the city didn't have much infighting. Perhaps they didn't even have the time or opportunity to fight amongst themselves. When Han Fei saw the city gate, the garrison guards immediately shouted at them, "Stop wasting time. If you survive, you'll have plenty of time to spend with each other in the future. Get out of the city now." Although it was a shout, there was no sense of urgency in his voice. The garrison guards seemed to be able to understand. Perhaps this was a parting of life and death. It would be good to let him take a few more steps. When Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan arrived at the outer city, the garrison guards immediately said to them, "Come on, you 2 intermediate dangling fishers will be in the last batch in the inner circle." As he spoke, the soldier smiled at the 2 of them and said, "Don't panic. We've fought this kind of war 186 times. He had survived in the past, and he would survive this time as well. Stand over there, near the inner city wall." Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were a little dumbfounded at this moment. They had never seen such a scene before. They allowed others to make arrangements for them. As far as their eyes could see, there was a sea of people, and they couldn't see the end. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan stood close to the inner city wall. Even if they were going to fight, they would probably be the last batch to go out to fight, which was their special care. There were many similar situations with Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan, most of whom were young couples or junior dangling fishers. Even the front row of Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were arranged in this way. In the sky, There were 8 hidden fishers, all with wings on their backs. Some were carrying armor boxes, some were carrying daggers, some were holding swords, and some were holding guns. The beautiful woman in a red robe that Han Fei saw just now was one of them. And at the very front of these people, there was another person in the farthest sky. That person's figure looked extremely abrupt because there was no one around him. It was very likely that he was stronger than a hidden fisher. Han Fei looked over, secretly took a breath, and said to Xia Xiaochan, "I don't think this battle will be easy. Don't dodge." Xia Xiaochan said impatiently, I know, it's so annoying." In front of Han Fei, there was also a couple who looked back with a smile. "Hey, it's okay. We experienced it once last year. At that time, we just went out of the city to show our faces and then came back." The girl was looking at Xia Xiaochan. "Sister, you are so beautiful." Yes, the girl looked younger than Xia Xiaochan, and Han Fei estimated that she was at most 13 years old. Xia Xiaochan looked embarrassed. "You are also quite good-looking." The little girl said, "My name is Yining, Sun Yining." Xia Xiaochan glanced at Han Fei. "Hello, my name is Xia Xiaochan." And the boys secretly gave Han Fei a thumbs up, as if saying, "It's really cool to have such a beautiful wife." Han Fei tilted his head slightly, secretly showed off to the boy, and then asked, "Dude, what does the big fish tide look like? We haven't seen it before." The boy shrugged. "We haven't seen it either. It should only be seen at the front line, right? It is said that blood can cover our heavenly desolate city. I don't know. Is it true? However, when I went out last time, the smell of blood was really strong, and many people didn't come back." Han Fei's face turned serious. This description is a bit exaggerated. Could fresh blood envelop the entire city? How many people will die? Not far away, a boy snorted and said, "When you see it, it will be too late. My 4 brothers were all sacrificed at the forefront. I didn't find a girlfriend this year because I didn't want to have a child and let him continue to die." Everyone was silent, a little embarrassed. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan looked at each other and couldn't help sighing. Their life experience was a bit tragic. Everyone was waiting, but no one felt impatient. If possible, Han Fei believed that everyone here hoped that the big fish tide would go back. Then they could return to the inner city with peace of mind and do what they usually like to do. After waiting for about an hour, suddenly, Han Fei heard a beep sound, and the conch horns began to be blown one after another, one louder and one longer than the last. On the distant city wall, the fish skin drum was rumbling. The lonely figure at the front suddenly shouted, "Attention, the first team to the 10th team, prepare to leave the city. Kill, kill, kill." In the chilling sound waves, 2 hidden fishers suddenly flew forward, seeming to be going out of the city with everyone. However, when these 2 hidden fishers left, Han Fei saw another 2 hidden fishers flying over from nowhere and filling in the positions just now. Xia Xiaochan squeezed Han Fei's hand so nervously that she almost broke his hand. Han Fei said, "Don't panic. It's still early for us." Because the distance from the inner city wall to the outer city wall was not close. Besides, there were many buildings along the way, so Han Fei didn't know what was going on ahead. But the hexagon starfish suddenly said to him via voice transmission, "I feel a dangerous aura." Han Fei responded, "Bullsh asterisk T, the whole city has come out to fight. How can it not be dangerous? BM, 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 hiss, huh?" After the first few teams left the city, such sounds never stopped. The battle was very fierce. The sound of fighting could cross the outer city wall and reach inside. During this period, in the sky, another hidden fisher-level master left the team and flew out of the city. It could be seen that the battle outside was definitely not easy. Otherwise, there wouldn't be another hidden fisher-level master. Han Fei and the others had seen Xiao Zhan fight at that time. Not to mention anything else, Xiao Zhan alone was worth thousands of troops in Han Fei's eyes. However, 3 masters of this level left at once. The fish skin drum never stopped beating, and the war conch horns often sounded. After about an hour of fighting, a voice came from the sky again. "The first 20 teams leave the city, 50,000 people to fill in." Han Fei heard the garrison guards not far away say in surprise, 50,000 people to fill in so quickly? This year's war is very fierce. Han Fei vaguely guessed that the number of the 20 teams just now was probably about 50,000 people. Then the first 10 teams that left the city had at least more than 20,000 people. 20,000 people, and after fighting for an hour, another 50,000 people left? Han Fei couldn't help but be a little shocked. What kind of war is this? This time, he directly followed the 3 hidden fissures. Then only 2 hidden fissures came to fill in, so there were only 6 hidden fissures left in the sky. Xia Xiaochan said, "The battle outside should be very difficult." Han Fei nodded. "Let's wait and see. We are different." Han Fei wasn't sure. If he died here, wouldn't he also become a ghost? The sky had already darkened, but everyone was nervously staring at the front. Although they couldn't see anything in front, there were still people chatting and talking before, but now there were no more. 2 hours later, with a loud bang, it resounded throughout the entire outer city. However, not even 3 breaths of time after this explosion, there was another loud rumble. The first 30 teams leave the city. Hurry up. In the sky, another 3 hidden fissures left. And this time, only 1 person filled in, so there were only 4 hidden fissures left in the sky. Han Fei's expression became more and more solemn. Another 70,000 or 80,000 people went out. Chapter 414. Outside the city, the battle cries shook the sky, and all kinds of lights were shining in the sky, which was very conspicuous in the dark night. It wasn't until late at night that the noise outside died down a little, and at the forefront of the city wall, there was already a commotion. Han Fei and the others saw 2 hidden fissures flying back, one of whom was the beautiful woman in a red robe. At this moment, she was in a terrible state. There seemed to be a big hole in her chest, and one of her wings was missing. She barely flew in the air with the help of another hidden fissure. In front, the crowd was shouting, get out of the way, make a passage." Behind, all the teenagers made way to the sides, all nervous, because Han Fei and the others were closest to the south gate of the inner city. After a while, he saw many people being carried, limped, or carried into the inner city. Among the wounded, some lost their arms, some lost their legs, and some were covered with wounds cut by sharp blades, bleeding. Anyway, as far as Han Fei could see, no one was intact. They were all stained with blood. The color of the blood was also quite strange. There were green, blue, yellow, and red blood. Puff! Han Fei watched with his heart in his mouth. Suddenly, he saw a wounded person being carried suddenly vomit a few mouthfuls of blood, and there were even worms in the blood. He also saw that someone had been deeply poisoned. His skin and face had completely turned blue, and the blood flowing out of his mouth was no longer red but blue-black. Spirit gatherers. Urgently summon spirit gatherers to the inner city for rescue. Xia Xiaochan seemed to be frightened by this mockery. Although she was very violent and good at fighting, she had never seen such a scene before. Every minute, dozens or even hundreds of people were sent into the inner city. It was a horrible scene. Almost immediately, many people shouted, "I'm a spirit gatherer, I am." "Me too, I'm coming. I'm a spirit gatherer and a hunter. I can do it too." Xia Xiaochan looked at Han Fei. She knew how excellent Han Fei was as a spirit gatherer. As for Bai Ho, Xia Xiaochan hadn't seen anyone more talented than Han Fei. However, Han Fei looked at her palely and slightly shook his head. Han Fei said telepathically, "There's no way to save her, and I can't. If this battle was a battle to destroy the city, I might be able to temporarily save 10 or 100 people, but it would be of no help to the battle." Xia Xiaochan frowned. So we just watch them die?" Han Fei took a deep breath. "I know this is a cruel choice, but I have to conserve my power. This is their world, their city, and our world is not here." Han Fei clenched his fists. He really wanted to rush over to save them. However, his rationality told him that this would not work. A spirit gatherer was too powerless in a war of this level. If Han Fei chose to save people, this city would not be destroyed, and he would not hesitate. But both he and Xia Xiaochan knew that the undersea city had been destroyed countless years ago, and there were only undead spirits and hero souls left. Han Fei said resolutely, "I'm afraid this battle won't be easy. We'll have to go out eventually. Remember, don't flash around randomly when you get out." Xia Xiaochan nodded with her pale little face. This rescue operation lasted about half an hour, and the bugle sounded again. Immediately, the voice of the man in front echoed in the sky. "The first 50 teams go out of the city. All dangling fishers go out of the city." Han Fei gasped. "The first 50 teams? More than 100,000 people go out of the city. What the hell was going on out there?" Han Fei looked at the 4 hidden fishers in the sky and had an ominous hunch in his heart. Is the man in front preserving his strength and letting the hanging fishers go out of the city? They're going to die. The night passed quietly. Han Fei was already numb. The number of teams in the city had been pulled out by about 60%. When the morning light shone, another rescue operation happened. This time, it was even more unbearable than the last time. When these people were pulled back, they'd already lost their human forms. If not for their strong physique, they would be no different from a dead person. The short repair lasted until the sun completely rose above the horizon, and then until the sun was halfway down the horizon. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan seemed to have become the last batch of humans who could go out of the city unknowingly. At this moment, they were no longer close to the inner city wall. Less than a kilometer away, it was the outer city wall. Han Fei counted carefully, only to find that there were less than 100 teams in total. Even though the horizontal length of each team was very long, at this moment, it began to shrink from horizontal to vertical. "All, go!" The strong man at the top of the city wall, after speaking, took a step out. This was the first time he had left that place since last night. This man, from beginning to end, didn't say a word of nonsense, nor did he say any encouraging words. At this moment, even the commander had gone out of the city. It could be seen to what extent the war had reached. Han Fei looked at everyone here, whose faces were full of determination, including the young couples around them. At this last moment, they were telling each other their hearts, encouraging each other, and making some promises that even they didn't quite believe. Han Fei grabbed Xia Xiaochan's hand and said, "When we go out, you must not have an attack. If you have such a sign, tell me as soon as possible." Xia Xiaochan suddenly said, "If we die here, can we go back?" Han Fei shook his head. "No matter what, we can't die. We can't gamble with death. As long as we can come here alive, we can go out alive. So, no matter when, we have to be strong." Han Fei took Xia Xiaochan's hand and began to rush out with the main force. The people on the side all shouted in unison, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" He didn't know whether they were encouraging him or not. Or did they mean something else? Anyway, when Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan left the outer city with the crowd, almost in an instant, a strong smell of blood and fish came to their faces, which was simply disgusting. And Han Fei finally saw what it looked like outside the city. Above the sky, hidden fishers were fighting, because the battle of strong people at their level affected too much. It was impossible for them to fight in close combat. They could only fight high in the sky, far away from the city. However, Han Fei still saw dozens of huge tentacles in the sky, which seemed to grow out of the clouds. The human battle collided with each other, bursting out ripples, and even the clouds were shaken away. And in front of him, everyone was rushing forward. Within 3,000 meters, it was not a battlefield. It seemed that human beings had been suppressing the battlefield beyond 3,000 meters. However, Han Fei could see 2-story-high lobsters, giant crabs rushing left and right, giant octopuses waving their giant whips from time to time, mantis shrimp, red-haired big-mouthed crab, mess swallowing worms, spherical creatures, water-shaped creatures, and many other creatures that he couldn't name crowded on the distant battlefront. The glow, bursting out of combat skills, almost covered the entire battlefield. The phantoms of various spiritual beasts and contractual spiritual beasts appeared from time to time, fighting. Someone shouted, "Block!" Everyone, press forward. We must defend the outer city. Someone roared, "Choose your target. If you can't beat them, change to another one. Leave the strong to the strong." Approaching the battlefield, Han Fei heard someone crying and someone howling. Han Fei saw a person lose his direction and run to his side. He looked like he was in pain, and there were golden nematodes crawling out of his body. Just as Han Fei was about to help him get out of the sea of suffering, he saw a layer of flames immediately burst out of this person's body, and then a dagger swept past, killing him quickly. Xiao Xiaochan took action, faster than Han Fei. Han Fei turned his head, only to see Xiao Xiaochan looking serious. No matter what, we're already here. Let's fight this battle well. We'll talk about it when we can't beat them. Han Fei took a deep look at her and then nodded. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that his feet were soft. When he took a look, he found that there was sand under his feet, and the coldness had spread here. Huh, a beach? Han Fei knew that this city had fallen. However, was there a beach outside the city? Didn't it mean that this city would be submerged at any time? Just as he was thinking, 100 teams of people had rushed into the battlefield. This collision was like a meteorite colliding with a meteor. Han Fei saw countless rocks tumbling in the water, piranhas leaping out from the sand, blades as bright as the moon swooping at the crowd, giant crabs charging at them. These were not the point. The point was, Han Fei saw the inferior manfish. First update, asking for votes, into this chapter. The God of Fishing, latest chapter 414. Chapter 414, Heavenly Desolate City, Big Fish Tide below. Chapter 415. Han Fei frowned. Be careful. Those are manfish, good at soul attacks. Xiao Xiaochan was surprised. Manfish, holding the embroidery needle. Han Fei smashed a mess-swallowing worm with his rod and said without looking back, yes, they are very strong, equivalent to a hanging fisher. As he spoke, many insects in the shape of lines had already surged out from under Han Fei's feet. Han Fei's eyelids flickered, and the embroidery needle was replaced by the water-dividing seal. He slapped the seal, and spiritual energy burst out, shaking all the insects within dozens of meters into powder. Looking back, Xia Xiaochan had turned into a shadow and landed on a big octopus, and hundreds of shadow blades cut the big octopus crazily. Seeing this, dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers burst out of Han Fei's body and swished over. In the blink of an eye, under the attacks of the two, the big octopus was cut into many pieces. Before they could react, the shadow of a crab's big pincer had already clamped over. Not only the crab, but at least 5 mess-swallowing worms suddenly rushed over. In the distance, the nematodes also besieged them again. Not far away, someone wailed, "Yinin!" Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were both stunned. Turning their heads, they found that the girl named Sun Yinin, who had been in front of them, had her abdomen pierced by a scorpion tail, and light blue venom had spread on her body surface. And the boy, with the weapons in his armor box, slashed the sea scorpion into 2 pieces with a big sickle blade behind him. Bam! With Xia Xiaochan as the center, thousands of shadowless knives flashed in the air, and several mess-swallowing worms were cut into dozens of pieces in an instant. Han Fei said, "Don't get excited." Xia Xiaochan appeared beside Sun Yinin with an ugly face and pulled out the scorpion tail. After Han Fei killed the surrounding sea creatures, he rushed over and immediately cast the divine healing technique on Sun Yinin. However, he found that not only the girl's lower abdomen was pierced, but her heart was also pierced. The boy's tears continued to flow. Xiao Xiaochan frowned, holding the daggers with both hands and squeezing them a little hard. Han Fei gritted his teeth and stomped on the ground. In a circle of spiritual energy, all the blue sea wandering dragon daggers in his body flew out. With him as the center, it spun crazily 10 meters away. The saber light turned into a circle of flowing cold light, and all living beings in the area were crushed. Han Fei looked around, only to see sea beasts everywhere. There were mess-swallowing worms, sea scorpions, crabs, and other creatures everywhere in the water. Compared to marine creatures, humans were much smaller. However, it was also because of its agility that it could jump around in the water. Every time it attacked, it was a dangerous challenge. Han Fei's sudden outburst shocked many people around him. A spirit gatherer took the initiative to channel spiritual energy into Han Fei's body and shouted, "Brother, take it easy. Don't overexert yourself at the beginning." Someone shouted, "Good kill." After Han Fei's outburst, a shrill howl sounded, and the creatures around Han Fei all retreated. At the same time, a black shadow swam towards them. Han Fei roared, "Xia Xiaochan, don't just stand there." Swish! Xia Xiaochan flashed and appeared dozens of meters away. Her two daggers were burning with flames, setting off two flaming knife lights in the water. The shadow in the water leaped up and stabbed a harpoon out of the water. The waves on the harpoon rolled and blocked Xia Xiaochan's attack head-on. A string of data appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Inferior Manfish, Low-Level Sea Demon. Introduction: a sea demon with immature intelligence, cruel and bloodthirsty. Because of its poor breed, it is impossible to judge what kind of creature it evolved from. Level 42, Spiritual Energy. Demon Heritage, Level 3. Mid-quality, Realm, Awakened, Companion Spirit, Blue-tailed, Poisonous Scorpion, Unabsorbable. Han Fei's face changed slightly, and he immediately said, "Let's work together." Xia Xiaochan turned into a shadow again, and Han Fei followed closely behind, pushing the embroidery needle with his palm and hitting the harpoon. Boom! This impact directly shook the seawater within a radius of nearly 100 meters. Han Fei was shaken back dozens of meters by the harpoon and slid on the sand for dozens of meters, feeling quite comfortable. What great strength! The inferior manfish seemed to be stunned by Han Fei and rolled dozens of times at the bottom of the water after being poked by Han Fei's rod. It didn't expect that this dangling fisher-level human could take a blow from it head-on. Han Fei shook his hand, stomped on a puddle, and charged at the enemy again. This time, the embroidery needle flickered with spiritual energy, and 9 tails appeared behind Han Fei in an instant. And before the inferior manfish attacked again, a big blue scorpion suddenly appeared out of thin air, and its stinger stabbed at a shadow. That shadow was naturally Xia Xiaochan. After the attack, Xia Xiaochan flashed and instantly flashed behind the inferior manfish, stabbing the inferior manfish's shoulders with the supreme stinger. Chilla! The inferior manfish staggered, and its back was cut by 2 huge knife wounds that were deep to the bone. Blue blood flowed out of its body, which was sticky. When the scorpion tail came again, Xia Xiaochan's body followed it like a shadow, circling around the scorpion tail and appearing on its head. Then 2 more stabs directly went into the scorpion's shell. Xia Xiaochan's attack created a favorable opportunity for Han Fei. Because the inferior manfish leaned back in an instant, Han Fei changed his movement technique in the air and pressed his rod against the inferior manfish's chest. Puff! A large amount of blue blood spurted out of the inferior manfish's mouth. Its chest was directly sunken, and the bones of its back were exposed by Han Fei's blow. Before Han Fei attacked again, a cold light pierced directly into the back of the inferior manfish's neck. As the cold light flashed, an ugly fish head fell into the water. Hiss! With the death of the inferior manfish, the big blue scorpion also began to stagger, as if it had a plague. Within 5 minutes, it lay prone in the sea and stopped moving. Good kill. Fierce. Fierce enough. Amazing, these two are really fierce. While the surrounding people were cheering, a figure quickly rushed over. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan immediately knew that this was a hanging fisher, who was so strong that the two of them felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. However, the man took a deep look at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. 2 intermediate dangling fishers can actually kill low-level sea demons. Okay, you help each other in this sea area and don't come to the central battlefield. With that, the man immediately left the battlefield. Originally, he saw an inferior manfish here and was about to come to rescue it. Moreover, his speed could be said to be extremely fast. But as soon as he rushed here, he saw that the inferior manfish's head had been cut off. If it were any other time, he would definitely ask Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan about it, and then bring them into the inner city and focus on training them. But now, it was a critical moment of the battle, and he couldn't be distracted at all. He could only think that if these two were still alive after this battle, he would take them back and focus on training them. After killing an inferior man-fish, Han Fei grinned and immediately sent a stream of spiritual energy to Xia Xiaochan. It seems that we can now kill hanging fishers. Xia Xiaochan tilted her head. This big scorpion seems to be its contractual spiritual beast. Han Fei didn't comment. What exactly is an associated spirit? He didn't know. However, it should be awakened, just like the spiritual beasts of human beings. At this moment, he couldn't help but wonder what Yang Ryun's associated spirit was at that time. He didn't see it at that time. Before they cheered for killing an inferior man-fish, a roar suddenly came from the sky. Big Blade Dragon Slayer. Under the shocked gazes of many people, in the distant sky, a middle-aged man was surrounded by three creatures. A ball-shaped creature, an octopus monster, and a big crab. The knife in the middle-aged man's hand broke inch by inch. In the next second, a shocking knife light cut through the void, and the three creatures, who were at least hidden fishers, were killed by this knife, and their bodies fell from the sky. But the man was not dead yet. His whole body was burning, and his arms had turned into nothingness in the knife. But the man still stood proudly and shouted again, "Unity of man and knife." Han Fei saw that the man, like a meteorite falling from the sky, smashed directly into the distant deep sea. Rumble, a wave hundreds of meters high, was set off, and a strong ripple spread in the sea. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. A hidden fisher-level powerhouse died, just like that. Before he died, he turned into a knife and plunged straight into the sea, trying to take away one more marine creature at the cost of his life. Han Fei felt that the hexagon starfish was clinging tightly to his clothes and shoulders. He was probably scared. The battle continued, and Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had been fighting for nearly 2 hours. Even with Xia Xiaochan's amazing combat power, her strength was also drying up at this moment. This was not the exhaustion of spiritual energy, but her strength. After all, Xia Xiaochan was a dangling fisher, and the efficient killing of enemies in 2 hours was far from being replenished with spiritual energy. Han Fei immediately threw a spiritual fruit at her. "Eat it. Take a break." Xia Xiaochan flashed, holding the spiritual fruit in her mouth. And in the next second, she had already landed next to a girl and helped her kill a circle of piranhas. Han Fei's clothes were torn. Looking around, the rhythm of the battlefield seemed to have never changed. What they looked like when they came out was still the same. The difference was that the seawater under their feet had really been dyed red. Along the coast, as far as the eye could see, corpses were everywhere, piling up like mountains. "Rumble, go, go, it's dangerous." The hexagon starfish, who had been silent, suddenly spoke to Han Fei via voice transmission. Looking up in the sky, a sword shadow crossed dozens of kilometers in an instant and nailed into the deep sea. Chapter 416. Not only were Han Fei and the others retreating, but many people were also retreating to the city gate. A hidden fisher shouted in the sky, "Move back. Don't fight. Retreat quickly." Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. Han Fei looked down, only to find that the seawater under his feet was flowing backward into the sea. F***CK. It was definitely not a good thing to see the seawater flowing backward. He didn't know who sent out that sword light just now. He didn't know what that sword light was going to do. He only knew that the sword ray was very strong, so strong that he would be crushed if he touched it. Xia Xiaochan said, "Something's wrong. The ground is shaking." Han Fei looked at the trembling gravel with a solemn face. Suddenly, someone shouted beside Han Fei and the others, "Look, what's that?" Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan hurriedly turned their heads, but what they saw made them feel as if they had been struck by lightning. In their field of vision, it was a crab, an extremely huge crab. Its body was nearly a kilometer wide and hundreds of meters high. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed. F***CKU. Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened. What a big crab. Maybe because the crab was too huge, Han Fei could only read its data at a close distance under normal circumstances. But at this moment, it directly appeared in his eyes. Name, Crab General, Sea Demon. Introduction, the king of crabs that rules a region. In the endless years, it has undergone countless transformations and evolved into a creature with extremely strong defensive abilities. Its spiritual sense is extremely high and it has excellent intelligence. It is a sea demon that dominates a region. Level, spiritual energy, demon heritage, realm, companion spirit. Unabsorbable at that time, Han Fei felt that there was no love in this world. If there is a war, we can fight. I'm not afraid of fighting a small crab at all. However, this thing was comparable to the size of Godzilla. How the hell was he supposed to fight it? Whoever has the ability, just fight it. Anyway, I'm not strong enough. Let's go. Of course, Han Fei was a little comforted. For example, one of the crab general's pincers had been broken, and its big pincers were gone, leaving only half of its limbs. The other pincer cut a streak of light in the void, piercing through the clouds. In the end, a deafening explosion exploded in the sky. Rumble. When the mist dissipated, Han Fei saw the strongest commander of the South Gate standing in the air with one hand behind his back and the other holding a sword. Retreat. That person's voice rumbled and reverberated in the sky. Human, die. As the crab slapped its other claw, a monstrous flood formed in the distance. In the sky, the sword-wielding man glanced back. Everyone, retreat while fighting. Enter the city. For a moment, the city gates opened, and the garrison guards, covered in blood, were organizing a retreat. However, there were too many people retreating. There was still a large number of marine creatures chasing after them, making it impossible for them to retreat in time. Fortunately, some people climbed over the city walls. Although the city wall was very high, it was only about 500 meters high, which was nothing for dangling fishers. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan retreated with the crowd. Han Fei's face changed greatly. This city can't hold on any longer. Such a huge wave can definitely fill the entire city with water. Xia Xiaochan retreated and looked at the ground. Wait, have you noticed? This city is descending. Just now, when we came out, it was the ocean 3,000 meters away. Now look at the water. Han Fei was stunned to find that there were traces of water 500 meters away from the city. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, if a city fell from the sky, why could it still float on the sea? Either there was something pressing against it from below, or Han Fei suddenly looked at the city wall. This city has a shocking array. That was the only result that Han Fei could think of, although he couldn't believe that there was such a huge array protecting the city. It seemed that there was no other possibility. Retreat, retreat, don't fight anymore. Hiss! The ground was shaking, and the hidden fishers were shouting. Han Fei looked back, only to find that above the monstrous wave, there were countless shrimp shadows emerging. Yes, he couldn't be wrong. Those were definitely shrimp. If he couldn't recognize the shrimp heads, why would he run to the sea? Swish, swish, swish! In the wave shadows, shrimp stings shot at him like flying locusts, each of which was flashing with spiritual energy. At this moment, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had just reached the city wall. Because they couldn't squeeze through the city gate, they could only climb the wall. Han Fei shouted, "You go first." With that said, Han Fei suddenly grabbed Xia Xiaochan's hand and threw it up hard. The huge force made Xia Xiaochan's petite body shoot straight into the sky like a sharp arrow. In the end, Xia Xiaochan flashed and stood on the city wall, shouting to Han Fei, "Come on." Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan. "Wait for me. I'll be right there." With that said, Han Fei suddenly stood in front of the city gate and activated the water-dividing seal, which turned into a seal more than 30 meters long in the blink of an eye. Xia Xiaochan stomped her feet in anger. Han Fei had warned her not to be stupid, but now she was being stupid. Was she stupid? Han Fei knew that this city was going to be lost, and there might be stronger existences behind it. But at the city gate, many of the thousands of people had lost their combat power and couldn't even climb the wall. They could only look back at the shrimp stings and wait for death. Their desperate eyes almost made Han Fei's brain cramp. Han Fei murmured to himself, "I can resist them, just one wave." I can only resist one F asterisk king wave. The hexagon starfish was shocked. Are you crazy? Han Fei said, Master Hexagon Starfish, you have to trust me at this time. I don't believe you. I want to go back to the land of starfish. Han Fei scolded, Shut up. Behind Han Fei, someone roared, Boy, get the F asterisk CK up. It's not your turn to save us. Come on, don't waste your talent. Kill a few more sea demons for us in the future. Hey, don't resist them. You can't. Don't die in vain. Han Fei turned around, grinned, grabbed the embroidery needle, and stabbed it into the ground. Big, big, big. The embroidery needle became thicker and taller. However, when the embroidery needle reached a height of about 50 meters, it didn't listen to him anymore. Han Fei was speechless. Hey, can you be more reliable? Learn from the golden cudgel. It can pierce the sky. I don't want you to pierce the sky. I just want you to be as tall as this city. However, the embroidery needle didn't respond. Clank, clank, clank. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that the water-dividing seal was being attacked crazily. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of shrimp thorns bombarded it. Majestic Mystic Spell. At this moment, Han Fei used the Majestic Mystic Spell. His muscles bulged, and a terrifying power spread to his limbs and bones. Even with the water-dividing seal and the embroidery needle, Han Fei still felt deeply helpless. There were too many shrimp thorns, overwhelming him. They were so powerful that his body was bent. Fool! Suddenly, Han Fei felt that something was wrong under his feet. A shadow had entangled him, and then turned into Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei was furious. Didn't I tell you to stay up there? Xia Xiaochan snorted. If you don't go up, I won't go up. If you die, I'll die with you. Han Fei's body trembled. No one had ever said this to him in his 2 lives. Xia Xiaochan was the first. He looked at her again, only to see that she was serious and matter-of-fact. Han Fei suddenly grinned and focused all his spiritual energy on the water-dividing seal. He gritted his teeth and roared, I am Han Fei. I was born to be extraordinary. I won't die here. Clank, 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 clank. The dense shrimp thorns fell on the water-dividing seal like hail, making tinkling sounds. Pooh! Behind Han Fei at the city gate, someone cursed, Son of a B asterisk H. Kids nowadays are so disobedient. You got guts, boy. If you don't die, you will definitely reach the peak one day. Okay, boy, you can get out of here now. Han Fei looked back with difficulty and smiled. Then, he saw a blue light shield appear on the city wall. All the shrimp thorns were blocked by the light shield. Sure enough, there's an array. Pooh! Han Fei sat on the ground, and the water-dividing seal became the size of a palm. The embroidery needle also became normal without the support of Han Fei's spiritual energy. Han Fei was exhausted, but he said with a smile, F asterisk CK, I'm so shocked. As soon as he put away the embroidery needle and the water-dividing seal, Han Fei felt that he was picked up. Xia Xiaochan grabbed him and jumped in the air with a dagger. After a few jumps, she finally landed on the city wall that was full of thorns. Han Fei tried his best, but he could only buy some time for those people. If he did it again, he didn't think he would be able to survive. Han Fei didn't know how many shrimp thorns he had blocked, but he must have saved a lot of people. Xia Xiaochan said angrily, From now on, listen to me and don't run around. With that, Xia Xiaochan took Han Fei's hand, jumped off the city wall, and ran towards the inner city. Han Fei said while running, Hey, slow down. I'm afraid we can't enter the inner city. Xia Xiaochan asked why. Han Fei smiled bitterly. Don't forget that when we entered the undersea city, the outer city was also a battlefield. At this moment, our top priority is not to run to the inner city, but to rest. Recover your strength, and let your combat power return to the peak. With that said, Han Fei took out the unfinished yellow-blooded sea cucumber and handed a large piece of sea cucumber meat to Xia Xiaochan. Xia Xiaochan was speechless. You're still thinking about eating it this time? You're definitely the only one. Xia Xiaochan took the sea cucumber and took a bite. Ignoring the taste, she asked directly, As you can see, we can't win this battle. Can we really only go back if we win? Han Fei smiled bitterly. Who knows? Anyway, don't think about going back dead if you can. Unless we're the only two people left in this city, unless we are surrounded, we have to survive no matter what. Xia Xiaochan nodded heavily. I always feel that this secret realm doesn't make sense for us to fight. The city has been destroyed for countless years. What else can we fight? Even if we win, can these dead people in the undersea city come back to life? Chapter 417. An opportunity? Xia Xiaochan was confused. She really couldn't tell what the opportunity was. Han Fei explained, it can allow people to travel through time and go back to the past. What kind of person do you think has such amazing means? Xia Xiaochan shook her head. I don't know. Han Fei put on a smile. Among the people we saw today, I'm afraid no one has this ability. Just now, we saw that the man with the sword was very strong, right? However, I feel that he might be a law enforcer, or at most an explorer-level character. Anyway, he is about the same level as Old Bai. Do you think Old Bai can go back to the past? Xia Xiaochan shook her head again. Of course not. If he could, the president would have gone back a long time ago. I'm afraid what happened to the Thug Academy 30 years ago wouldn't have happened again. Han Fei nodded. Yes. So this kind of power is definitely beyond our understanding. In this case, if someone really has the means to bring us back here, he must have a purpose. Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes at Han Fei. I know he has a purpose, but what is his purpose? It's not like he wants us to save the people in this city, right? Han Fei shrugged. Then let's take a guess. Assuming that the purpose of our return is not to save people, we're not going to fight this big fish tide. Then why do we come back? Xia Xiaochan thought for a long time and finally shook her head, indicating that she couldn't guess. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Either there's a message to convey to us, or there's a legacy that must be inherited by someone. Obviously, when the people in this city die, some secrets will be buried, and this person doesn't seem to want them to be buried. Xia Xiaochan's eyes lit up. I seem to know. Han Fei was taken aback. How do you know? Xia Xiaochan said in surprise. It's the royal castle. In the center of the inner city, there's a royal castle. As you said, if there is a secret, the secret must be in the royal castle. Han Fei blinked his eyes. Then let's hurry to the inner city. Unfortunately, when Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan came to the gate, rows of guards were already standing there. Most of them were covered in blood and looked ferocious like door guards. Many people were at Juluan, but they had no chance to enter the inner city. A hidden fisher came back. One of his arms had disappeared. He was standing on a high place and shouting, "Everyone fight in the outer city. Defend," someone in the crowd shouted. "Sir, how long do we have to guard this place? Can we still win this battle?" The hidden fisher said coldly, "Whether we can win or not, the inner city cannot be breached. Inside are the lifelong efforts of the ancestors of the heavenly desolation city. Your friends, family, and friend are also inside. The inner city will not fall as long as you are alive." As the hidden fisher roared, the garrison guards all pounded the ground with their spears, emitting intense, murderous auras. Xia Xiaochan asked, "What should we do?" Wait. Han Fei was also helpless. Now that they wouldn't let you enter the inner city, you couldn't force your way in, just like the people by his side. Even though all of them were sorrowful, furious, and humiliated, all of them could only sigh in the end. What could they do? The inner city depended on them to protect it. If they left, who would fight? If everyone retreated, it was only a matter of time before the inner city was breached. In the sky, the battle was still going on. The floating light sword broke through the clouds. The earth-shattering pincers seemed to be able to crush mountains and rivers. A huge wave that was nearly 1,000 meters tall was pushed over. In front of everyone's eyes, it was like a crazed wave that slammed into the city's protective array with a loud rumble. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In just an instant, the earth shook and the houses collapsed. Han Fei saw that the green light array suddenly dimmed, and it was almost broken by the terrifying power. After this furious wave, Han Fei knew that the outside of the city must have been drowned. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the scene of the huge waves crashing against the array. After the huge wave passed, the coldness flowed down from all directions as if poured from a bowl. Although not a drop of the coldness entered the city, Such a scene was undoubtedly vast, shocking, and desperate. Beside Han Fei, someone sighed. There's no need to escape. Wherever you go, there will be a battle. It's better to die here than to escape. Someone grinned as if he had gone crazy. I will protect the peace of a city with my flesh and blood. Even if I die in the battle and turn into a ghost, I will not compromise with these damn creatures. A big man even took out a large piece of dried fish and chewed it on the spot. Fish are for eating. No matter how powerful they become, there will always be stronger people who put them in their mouths and chew them. For a moment, many people were desperate. However, despair didn't seem to bring any relief. So, for a moment, everyone gave up the cowardice in their hearts and decided to fight with their lives. If only one or two people were like this, Han Fei wouldn't be moved. However, when hundreds and thousands of people were like this, Han Fei was almost infected by their emotions. Xia Xiaochan even gritted her teeth, and tears were swaying in her eyes. Han Fei said to her via voice transmission, "Don't be impulsive. Keep waiting." After waiting for about the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, the crowd didn't see the second wave. Instead, they saw an incomparably huge giant turtle. Break. At that moment, everyone in the city saw a person turn into a stream of light, block in front of the giant pincer, and swing a sword in the sky with an ethereal enlightenment technique. As soon as the sword was drawn, the clouds scattered. The sword mark cut through the sky, swept across half of the sky, and even tore a black crack in space. Crack! 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 The crab's pincer didn't slow down, but it was full of cracks. Just when it was about to rush into the big array, the big pincer was broken into flying stones all over the sky. Every piece of the crab's pincer burned with dazzling flames in the air. The next second, they all fell on the green light array. BM, BM, BIM. For a moment, the city protecting array was smashed by the fragments all over the sky, causing ripples. Every time it hit, the city would tremble. The ground under Han Fei's feet never calmed down and kept shaking. Xia Xiaochan took a breath. Is that big crab dead? Han Fei swallowed. I don't know. Sister One also saw it just now. It should be dead, right? Han Fei wasn't quite sure. The magnificence of the sword just now really stunned him. The sword mark shot straight into the sky, and there was no telling how far it was. The mountain-like pincers were chopped into countless pieces in an instant. The power of the pincers could be seen clearly. Crack! Just when everyone thought that the city protecting array had blocked the impact of the crab's pincer, suddenly, a huge crack appeared on the green light array. A buzzing sound accompanied by an earthquake came crashing down. The moment the green light formation cracked, another monstrous wave came crashing down. Many people forgot what they were doing and looked up at the sky. Ka-cha! That one crack suddenly turned into millions of cracks. Almost in an instant, it covered everyone's head. Just when everyone thought that the green light array was about to be broken, the cold wave rolled back, and the array resisted again. Phew! Many people subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Many of them were drenched in sweat and looked nervous. Look, what's that? Someone suddenly saw that above the green light array, a small crab was hanging on it. BM, Kacha! In an instant, the scorching sun rose to the sky, and the green light array exploded. The cold wave that hadn't completely flowed back directly poured into the city. Fight! Fight! Get ready to fight. Cheer up, all of you. Damn it, brothers, let's fight. The moment the array was broken, many people's hearts died, but they knew that the array would still be broken if there were a few more huge waves at this moment. On the city wall, the hidden fisher shouted, "Everyone, I'm sorry, but I'm asking you to die." Someone said with a smile, "We've fought for so many years. It's enough. We've already emptied a city. There's nothing to be afraid of." Someone shouted aloud, "Finally, we don't have to fight anymore. Brothers, let's go on another journey in the next life." For a moment, the crowd was excited. Han Fei could clearly feel that these people were not afraid of death at all and were probably ready to die. Han Fei grabbed Xia Xiaochan's hand, fearing that she would act on impulse. Han Fei felt that the people around him were crazy. Before the waves came, These people had already fused with their spiritual beasts and possessed their contractual spiritual beasts. There were even some who had started running forward, as if they were ready to welcome the next huge wave. There was no doubt that in that huge wave, there would definitely be howling creatures. Han Fei said, "Don't charge. Let's just stand here. When these garrison guards and hidden fishers all go out, let's enter the inner city." Han Fei didn't intend to fight this battle. They didn't come here to fight, not to mention this kind of battle that they couldn't win. As he spoke, the huge wave swept over. The war came to an end. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. The God of Fishing latest chapter 417. Chapter 417, The Broken City website. Chapter 418. Run. You have to survive. Different from the regular high. Han Fei couldn't estimate what level this high was at all. Many people underestimated the power of water. Under the scourge of the flood, all the obstacles along the way were no longer obstacles. Huge waves rolled and fell. With just one slap, the frontmost row of defensive support was almost instantly turned into powder. The people at the front were blown away by the huge waves before they were ready to resist. They rolled in the cold and were killed by the creatures in the water in a moment of chaos. Especially at the head of the tide, there were some inferior manfish who were squeaking while stepping on the tide. No one could tell what they were yelling. These little fishmen's control of water could be said to be superb. Sometimes they would stand on the waves, sometimes they would dive into the water, and sometimes they would attack and kill. The big waves were the trenches that they hid in. The hidden fisher on the city wall was the first to charge out. Although he only had one arm, his sword was still too powerful for the Sun-Ho spirit to resist. As for the hanging fishers, Han Fei didn't see them at all. They didn't seem to have come to the rear at all. At this moment, only a few of the garrison guards were left at the gate of the inner city, and the rest of them all charged forward. Gugu, the waves came very fast. Perhaps because the waves were too huge and high level, it took less than an hour for the outer city to be flooded to the gate of the inner city. It was not hard to imagine how fierce it was. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were almost swept into the waves in the blink of an eye. But fortunately, the cold was not as powerful as it was at the beginning. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan waved their weapons in the water now and then. Every time Xia Xiaochan's shadowless blade appeared, she would take away one of the creatures. Han Fei, on the other hand, was even more domineering. The blue sea dragon saber was spinning like a top, and the advantage of the saber attacks was very effective in this kind of group battle. Around Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan, almost no creature could survive more than 1 second. Unfortunately, there were too many creatures in the cold. After fighting for only half an hour, Han Fei couldn't stand it anymore. There was no field of vision around them at all, so he could only use his spiritual perception to detect where the descendants were. In his spiritual perception, there were pieces of fish meat, crab shells, shrimp tails, insect claws. Earlier, Han Fei had been doubting the theory that the city was covered in blood. But at this moment, it wasn't just the desolate city that was bathed in blood. If the flesh and blood were spread out evenly, it would be enough to pave the floor of the entire Tianwang city. When the two inferior manfish stared at Han Fei knew that he couldn't stay in the outer city anymore. The inferior manfish had passed the obstacles in front and came to the rear. Xia Xiaochan responded, "One for each of us." In terms of individual combat ability, Xia Xiaochan was not inferior to Han Fei. Han Fei had seen this when he hunted the inferior manfish in the outer city. Therefore, Han Fei didn't hold back. When the harpoon stabbed at his chest, his figure flickered and the blood-drinking knife in his hand flashed. Pucci, this inferior manfish, didn't expect that an intermediate dangling fisher could perform such an amazing attack. Half of the inferior manfish's body was cut open. When its companion creature appeared, Han Fei quickly slashed at it again. Kacha! The harpoon broke. After another slash and 3 slashes, Han Fei finally killed this inferior manfish. When Han Fei swam to Xia Xiaochan, he found that the girl was piercing the inferior manfish dozens of times with a flash of red lightning. The inferior manfish was covered with wounds from head to feet. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. Xia Xiaochan, what combat skill is this? Xia Xiaochan flashed and landed next to Han Fei. Thousand strike technique. I dug it out from the cave of death. When the two of them jumped out of the water, they both had an urge to vomit. The city had completely become a Shura hell, and the coldness in the city had long been turbid. At this moment, a hidden fissure flew backward from a distance. Han Fei saw a harpoon stuck in his chest, which seemed to be from an inferior manfish. The hidden fissure flew in exactly the direction where Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were. Coincidentally, 1,000 meters away, a red inferior manfish broke out of the waves and glanced at them coldly. The hidden fissure was slightly stunned to see Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. Then he suddenly opened his hand and launched a wave at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. Go to the inner city. The speed and means of a hidden fissure were far beyond Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's imagination. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan only felt that a wave rolled in front of them, and they appeared in the inner city in the next second. At this moment, the inner city was not much better than the outer city. Half of it had been drowned in coldness, and people were fighting everywhere. The garrison guards, in particular, were mostly fighting in the inner city. At first, the experts above the level of dangling fissures all went to the outer city to fight, leaving the inner city empty. Because of the lack of protection, many garrison guards who had retired stopped going out of the city and began to defend the inner city. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's sudden appearance stunned a garrison guard not far away. Their arrival was too unexpected. After a flash of water, they were already here. The garrison guard immediately shouted at them, "Go to the center of the inner city. Now that you're here, don't get yourself killed here." The garrison guard's spiritual beast was a giant octopus. The giant octopus had 9 tentacles, but only 4 of them were alive. Han Fei didn't see any other contractual spiritual beasts. They might have been killed in battle. Without saying a word, Han Fei pulled Xia Xiaochan and ran to the center of the inner city. However, 2 inferior manfish jumped out after Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan ran 10 kilometers away. This time, neither Han Fei nor Xia Xiaochan intended to attack, because they saw a red inferior manfish dozens of kilometers away. Although it wasn't in front of him, the hidden fissure was defeated by a red manfish in the outer city just now. Swoosh! Han Fei attached Little Gold and flew to the sky with Xia Xiaochan in his arms. In such a situation, it was questionable whether or not they could run away. How could Han Fei choose to fight? Far away, the red inferior manfish seemed to be attracted by Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's flying. However, it seemed to have an opponent on its side, so it simply threw a harpoon at Han Fei. Han Fei's face changed greatly. "Damn it, I'm so far away. Am I in your way?" The harpoon came so fast that Han Fei didn't have time to react. Bam! Han Fei felt a huge force, and it was Xia Xiaochan who threw Han Fei away with a backhand. When Han Fei turned around, the harpoon was already dozens of meters away from Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei was instantly enraged. Xia Xiaochan. However, Xia Xiaochan appeared next to him in the next second and grabbed Han Fei's arm, saying palely, "What are you shouting for? Run!" Han Fei was greatly relieved. Immediately, he flew to the center of the city at full speed. At the same time, he cast the divine healing technique on Xia Xiaochan, because his hand that was holding Xia Xiaochan's waist touched blood. Han Fei frowned, took out 5 or 6 spiritual fruits, and handed them to her. "Eat them. They are all healing spiritual fruits." Xia Xiaochan was stunned. "Where did you get so many spiritual fruits?" Han Fei accelerated again. "I bought them." In the distance, the manfish had already started fighting the 3 hanging fissures after the first blow failed. However, when it saw that Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan dodged the harpoon, it was stunned. At the same time, the 3 hanging fissures were stunned. Although they were not as strong as the inferior manfish, they could still see Han Fei clearly. Intermediate dangling fissures? Immediately, one of them left the battle and chased after Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. In the sky, Han Fei looked at the city that had been half submerged by the cold, the inferior manfish that jumped out of the water from time to time, and the creatures that ran amok in the water. and he was shocked. Han Fei directly used the majestic mystic spell and accelerated again. Because of this, some inferior manfish jumped out of the water from time to time. But at this moment, Han Fei was so fierce that he shouted, "Those who stand in my way will die." An inferior manfish leaped at him, and his head was crushed by Han Fei with one hand. Along the way, Han Fei was horrified. What if one day, cities like the Heavenly Water Village and the Blue Marquee fell from the sky into the sea? If faced with these creatures in the level 3 fishery, they probably couldn't even hold on for half a day. And the heavenly desolate city below had held on for 187 times. Thinking of this, Han Fei realized something. After flying for about 500 kilometers, Han Fei saw a few vigorous figures chasing him in the water. It's not the red inferior manfish, but they seem to be faster than the inferior manfish we met before. Swish, swish, swish. When a few harpoons broke through the air and attacked him, the 9-star chain waved in the air, trying to block them. However, at the first collision, Han Fei felt that the 9-tailed mantis shrimp was injured. Carrying him, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp rolled in the air several times. The water-stirring seal hit the last harpoon. Han Fei's face was a little pale. He had consumed too much energy and couldn't replenish it in time. Xia Xiaochan asked, "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine." Han Fei's eyes turned cold, and he was about to seize the time to fight again, when he saw a person walking on the roof with a longbow in his hand. An arrow of spiritual energy pierced through the air and directly locked on the inferior manfish who were chasing Han Fei. Because of this sudden help, the inferior manfish were blocked, and they jumped out of the water. This time, Han Fei finally saw their nirvana clearly. Han Fei was a little shocked to find that the faces of these inferior manfish were more anthropomorphic than the faces of the inferior manfish he saw. Hiss! If the inferior manfish that Han Fei met before was ugly, then these inferior manfish were more or less acceptable. The difference between them was like the difference between a primitive man who had yet to fully evolve and a human who had yet to fully evolve. Han Fei could even tell whether they were male or female from their nirvana. Han Fei was shocked. Xia Xiaochan asked, "Huh? Will they really become human beings?" Han Fei said with an awful look, "I don't know. If I can take a closer look at the red inferior manfish, I may have the answer." Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan didn't dare to say anything, because the helper below shouted at them, "Go quickly! Stay alive!" Second night, asking for votes, end of this chapter. The God of Fishing, latest chapter 418. Chapter 418, Go quickly! Stay alive! Website. Chapter 419. Han Fei gritted his teeth, not knowing why the man suddenly showed up to help him and Xia Xiaochan. He knew that he, as a hanging fisher, couldn't have been a match for the 3 manfish in the situation just now. However, before Han Fei figured out what was going on, both of them had goosebumps. All of a sudden, an enormous hand appeared behind them. Their eyes blurred, and in the next moment, they appeared on the roof of a building. At this moment, the building wasn't drowned by the cold. The building was more than 50 meters tall, white and decorated with black mystic stones. It didn't seem ordinary at all. When Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan came back to themselves, they saw a white-haired young man standing in front of them. The man had a handsome face without any wrinkles. Judging from his appearance, he was probably in his 20s. Han Fei said, "Brother, you pa." At that time, Han Fei was slapped on the forehead and slapped to the ground. Xia Xiaochan flashed and stabbed out with her supreme stab. "Huh." The young man moved his body slightly and easily dodged Xia Xiaochan's attack. Han Fei quickly shouted, "Xia Xiaochan, stop." Xia Xiaochan flashed back to Han Fei and stared at the man warily. Han Fei stood up and said palely, "Bro, that's too much." Han Fei finally stood up, only to be slapped to the ground again. At this moment, he was completely stunned, not knowing how the man attacked at all. Xia Xiaochan said angrily, "Hey, who are you exactly? What do you want?" The young man said calmly, "2 kids. You don't know how to respect your elders at all. And you call me brother? I'm older than your grandpa. Do you know that?" "Huh." Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were both stunned. "Who the hell are you trying to fool?" Why are you pretending to be old with that handsome face of yours? You've dyed your hair white. What's the big deal? Han Fei was smart enough not to call him brother or bro anymore. Behind him, he pulled Xia Xiaochan back and took 2 steps back. Who was this man exactly? For a moment, he did not understand. All he knew was that the other party was very strong. The man looked at Xia Xiaochan up and down with appreciation in his eyes. He immediately stood in front of Xia Xiaochan. Hey, what are you looking at? The young man smiled faintly. Yesterday, my 186 son told me that he met a very beautiful girl. She should be the one in front of me, Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei was dumbfounded. No, wait a minute. How many sons have you had? The youth smiled and said, number 186. Hiss. Han Fei gasped and looked back at Xia Xiaochan, his eyes full of disbelief. Xia Xiaochan asked, Are you the mayor of Heavenly Desolation? The young man nodded and said, Yes, I am a city master, but I don't think you are from the Heavenly Desolation City. Han Fei looked rather unnatural. Why do you say that? His hands behind his back, the man said casually, If you were from the Heavenly Desolation City, I would have heard of a man who has a legendary contractual spiritual beast. Well, to be more precise, a genius who has 2 legendary contractual spiritual beasts. How could I not know him? Xia Xiaochan. Xia Xiaochan grabbed the flesh on Han Fei's waist and twisted it. Are you talking about legendary? And you said that the 9-tailed mantis shrimp was exotic? Han Fei swallowed too. Well, Senior, are you sure you're not mistaken? The young man looked at Han Fei with a smile. Do you know how to call me Senior now? Han Fei chuckled. Senior, you're really good at retaining your youthful looks. How did you get a soldier? I'll ask Xia Xiaochan to try it later. The mayor. The mayor was lost for words. Why are you talking to me about soldiers at a time like this? I don't know where you're from, but it's related to the Heavenly Desolation City. I just want to ask you one thing. Can you leave here alive? The young man was extremely solemn when he said that. His eyes seemed to be piercing Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's guts through their flesh. Han Fei knew that he couldn't hide anything or deceive the guy, so he shook his head and said, Xia Xiaochan and I came here by accident. We've been looking for a way to leave. Looking for a way? The mayor frowned. Is your way to leave here in the Heavenly Desolation City? Han Fei nodded. 90%. The mayor's eyes glittered. Can you take someone with you? Han Fei shook his head. I don't know, but I don't think so. The mayor immediately asked, Where are you from? Han Fei paused and hesitated. Damn it. Wouldn't it be too unbelievable to say that they traveled through time to come here? The mayor said, Ever since the Heavenly Desolation City fell into the sea of clouds and lost contact with other cities, it has been isolated for more than 200 years. During that time, nobody has visited the Heavenly Desolation City. The 2 of you are the only outsiders. Just because you can't solve it doesn't mean that I can't. Xia Xiaochan said, You can't solve it either. The mayor smiled. Little girl, don't be too certain. Han Fei smiled bitterly. I'm afraid that you can't solve it. The Heavenly Desolation City that we saw has sunk for countless years. The guards and those who are fighting in the outer city have already turned into heroic souls. The mayor couldn't help but release his aura and stare at Han Fei coldly. If I understand you correctly, are you saying that you're from the future? Han Fei smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything. Well, the mayor turned around and looked at the devastated city, the screaming people, and the fighting guards. He smiled casually and said, Just as I expected, the Heavenly Desolation City has been destroyed. After about 5 minutes of silence, Xia Xiaochan couldn't hold it anymore. Xia Xiaochan asked, Since you're the mayor, you must be the strongest. Why don't you fight? The mayor looked back at Xia Xiaochan. Because it's not time for me to take action yet. Since this city is going to be destroyed, I don't mind letting all the invaders die with it. Han Fei's eyes constricted. Senior, do you have any wishes? Or rather, is there anything that must be passed on? The mayor's lips curled. So that's why you're here. Han Fei said, It's a complete coincidence that we're here. The mayor burst into laughter. There's no need to explain. In your time, this city had already become a treasure trove. So, you're here for treasure hunting, aren't you? Han Fei immediately swallowed. The man was rather intimidating, but he could infer Han Fei's purpose from only a few words. Also, he wasn't moved at all when he learned that Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were from the future. Instead, he accepted the fact immediately. I didn't expect that the treasure of my city would be entrusted to two young treasure hunters. Then, the mayor looked at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. The Heavenly Desolation City does have two treasures. I don't know if it's a coincidence or fate, but you've come on the day of the city's destruction. Is this the *T heavenly laws? As he talked, a zigzagging behemoth came from the sky and spewed ice flames, destroying dozens of kilometers of land in one breath. A worm dares to show off in the Heavenly Desolation City? Humph! In the next second, the mayor snapped his fingers, and a water-shaped sword flew out and crossed 100 kilometers in the blink of an eye. The sword, on the other hand, had turned into a giant sword. There was no telling whether it was a flood dragon or some other creature. It spat out a dazzling pearl from its mouth, trying to resist the attack. However, in the blink of an eye, his core shattered and his body was destroyed. His gigantic body was completely destroyed in an instant. Not even a single scale was left. Han Fei almost peed his pants in fear. That was a bit too awesome. As if he had done something insignificant, the mayor looked back at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan and said, "Since it's your destiny, come with me." Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were both alarmed. They were so excited. Just now, the mayor said that there were indeed treasures here. Also, they were the treasure of a city. Han Fei found it hard to imagine. What kind of treasure could the mayor of the Heavenly Desolation City have to be the treasure of a city of such a level? The third update. Asking for votes. The author says, wait until the 20th. I really can't wait now. My head is exploding. I'm writing a lot every day. 300,000 words a month is really a lot. Well, I can't let you guess the treasure so easily, can I? Okay, throw me a vote. Hee hee. End of this chapter. The God of Fishing, latest chapter 49:19. Chapter 4:19. Chapter 4:20. The mayor waved his hand. The view before Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's eyes changed, and they found themselves in a cave inside a mountain. It was a large cave with a radius of no more than 1,000 meters. It was no different from a regular cave. However, there was a jade altar at the center of the cave. On the altar, two blue pillars of light, about 3 meters in diameter, pierced through the ceiling and the floor of the cave. From time to time, there would be water blue, silk-like, curved rays of light spilling out from the light pillar, floating around the cave and illuminating the entire cave dreamily. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were quite surprised. As a matter of fact, they didn't find anything in the two blue pillars of light. They were clearly empty. The mayor stood with his hands behind his back and said casually, "These are 2 drops of chaotic original water. It is safe to say that the changes in the Heavenly Desolate City today are related to them. However, I'm the only one in the entire Heavenly Desolate City who can borrow the power of 1 drop. No one else has been able to do it in the past 100 years. If you're really the chosen ones, give it a try." Han Fei was surprised. Chaotic original water? What's that? The mayor slightly shook his head. I don't know. Nobody knows where the chaotic original water comes from. Every drop of chaotic original water has a different function. I only know that one of the drops has a marvelous technique that I can borrow. As for the other drop, it's up to the chosen ones to reveal it. For a moment, Han Fei didn't even dare to breathe loudly. How strong was the mayor of the Heavenly Desolate City? The casual attack just now had completely stunned him. However, the mayor was only able to borrow the power of the chaotic original water despite his strength. How precious must the treasure be? Xia Xiaochan was confused. What if we're not the chosen ones? The mayor chuckled. These 2 items are the only things worth passing on in the Heavenly Desolate City. I think they're the only things that can take you back. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were both alarmed. There were millions of people in the Heavenly Desolate City. There were so many people here, but they couldn't find 2 people who could obtain this item. Could the 2 of them get it? Han Fei looked at it for a long time and finally asked, How do we try? The mayor said, just walk in. You'll find your own chance. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan looked at each other and thought, not nervous? That was pure boasting. They had never seen such a precious treasure in their lives, and it was something that could only be chanced upon by luck. Han Fei looked at his wrist and thought to himself, Master Calabash, it's up to you whether I can survive or not. Han Fei knew that he was different from Xia Xiaochan. Xia Xiaochan's spiritual heritage was an exotic one, and she seemed to be hiding some secrets. As for himself, without the demon purification pot, with his spiritual heritage and aptitude, he would be an ordinary person at best. Let's go. Wait a moment. The mayor suddenly grabbed Han Fei's shoulder. Before Han Fei realized what was going on, Master Hexagon had been caught by the city lord. Interesting. A hexagon starfish is rare, but it can't go in. As he spoke, the mayor tossed Mr. Hexagon Starfish to the ground. Master Hexagon Starfish was shivering right now. Its whole body was trembling, and its 6 big eyes didn't dare to open at all. The city lord was too strong. He had set up multiple stealth arrays, but none of them could escape the senses of the city lord. Han Fei said, Master Hexagon Starfish, wait for me outside. As he spoke, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan walked to the altar in the middle without saying a word. On the altar, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan stood before a blue pillar of light. They looked at each other and stepped into it almost at the same time. Without any resistance, Han Fei felt that he had entered a regular pillar of water. However, the water here was finer and clearer than seawater. Outside, the mayor clenched his fists, which had been behind his back. Was it really a coincidence that he met these 2 young men on the day of the destruction of the city? Could they inherit the 2 drops of chaotic original water? In the chaotic original water, Han Fei closed his eyes and sensed it. After a time, he opened his eyes again and looked up. Huh, nothing. Han Fei frowned. Although the water seemed different from seawater and fresh water, he didn't sense anything special about it. The only thing that Han Fei felt was the fresh water in the mirror of the sky in the white mist salt marsh. They were both pure and flawless. Apart from that, there was nothing special about it. Han Fei turned around and looked at Xia Xiaochan, only to find that she was circling in the water pillar. Then, she stared at Han Fei for a while, but she didn't seem to have any reaction. When Han Fei was about to extend his hands, he felt that his body was pulled by an invisible force, and he appeared outside of the water pillar. Less than 2 seconds after Han Fei came out, Xia Xiaochan was also ejected. Alas, the mayor heaved a sigh. It still doesn't work? Xia Xiaochan said, let's try another place. Han Fei thought of something. That's right. Didn't they say that every drop of chaotic original water was different? Maybe it would work if they changed it? So under the mayor's gaze, the 2 of them crawled into each other's blue pillars. The mayor's eyes flashed. This was his last chance. His face seemed to be flushed. When Han Fei entered the water pillar, he didn't feel anything, but Xia Xiaochan's pillar suddenly disappeared. Great! The mayor roared and clenched his fists in excitement, staring at Xia Xiaochan without blinking. He had thought that he wouldn't have any hope, but he didn't expect that the surprise would come so soon. Han Fei was shocked too. There was a reaction in the blink of an eye. A rolling stream of water was flowing from Xia Xiaochan's body from left to right, from top to bottom, until it disappeared into her body. Han Fei could also see that Xia Xiaochan was at a loss. She circled again and then scratched her body, as if she were trying to find where the chaotic original water went. However, Xia Xiaochan only searched for a while before she looked at Han Fei. The mayor was looking at Han Fei too. Xia Xiaochan had succeeded, but what about Han Fei? Han Fei was rather stunned and nervous himself. Master Calabash, I'm counting on you. Try harder. This is a great treasure. Just take it. There was no telling if Han Fei's prayer worked, or if the demon purification pot sensed it, but Han Fei felt that the water pillar shivered. Yes, it was just a tremble. At that moment, Han Fei felt that the chaotic original water seemed to be alive. Han Fei sensed that a life was shivering. Because of the shivering, the picture before Han Fei's eyes changed. After a trance, when Han Fei opened his eyes again, he found himself on a boundless ocean. Han Fei looked around in a hurry. Where the hell am I? Suddenly, Han Fei felt that his feet hurt, and he saw that the waves below his feet were not waves of water, but waves of knives. Immediately, Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing. The ocean below his feet seemed to be made of countless water knives, and these sabers were like the waves of the sea, tumbling and surging. When Han Fei blinked his eyes again, the dense knives were gone. The waves were still waves, and there was no trace of the knives at all. Shoot! What's going on? Han Fei raised his hand, trying to check the demon purification pot on his wrist. However, when he raised his hand, a wave suddenly rose on the surface of the ocean. At that time, Han Fei was stunned. Is this under my control? Han Fei raised his other hand. Sure enough, another wave rose on the surface of the ocean. When Han Fei put his hands down, the raised wave became an ordinary wave again. Han Fei gulped. He tried to raise one of his hands and waved it around. As a result, he saw that the raised wave seemed to be wrapped in water knives, which darted out and leaped into the sea not far away. Han Fei tried to wave his arm again and let it spin in circles. The waves tumbled and formed circles after circles, drawing an arc in the air. In the waves, countless water knives were spinning. Han Fei was shocked by how fast and how many of them were. When Han Fei put down his hand and looked down, he saw that something seemed to be floating at him from the bottom of the ocean. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei felt that something was shooting into the center of his eyebrows. At that moment, he was woken up with a cold sweat all over his body. After Han Fei woke up, he saw that the mayor was holding a light shield with one hand, and Xia Xiaochan was standing next to him, with Master Hexagon Starfish lying on Xia Xiaochan's leg. Han Fei looked around in confusion, only to find that the altar under his feet had collapsed, and the walls of the cave were full of knife marks. The mayor's eyes were glittering. He burst into laughter when he saw that Han Fei had woken up. Ha! Ha ha! The mayor of the city laughed so wildly that the rocks in the cave were falling and the wind was blowing. The heavenly desolation city is blessed. What you owe us will be paid back eventually. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter.